Physical fiends, it is that time of year again as I maddeningly go through every single Nintendo Switch physical release that is exclusive to Japan or other Asian regions and that do have English text and so are ripe for importing. I'm even including some games that may not have English but don't necessarily need it. Some shmups for example, but when that occurs, I will be sure to explicitly state the lack of English. Previous years, I've also included games that did get a very limited Western release via companies such as Limited Run Games or Strictly Limited Games. The idea being that the Japanese or Asian releases are still accessible in comparison to those. And while I'm still including them in this video, they are going to be in their own section at the end of the video. They are not true import exclusives, but they're still worth looking into. This year, I am grouping them into genres. I did this 2 years ago when I was still at Switchwatch and most people loved it. I didn't do it last year because I'm stubborn and mildly lazy, and some people felt it was worse as a result, so I'm gonna go to the extra effort once again this time around, putting them into genres, or at least attempting to. Many games these days are more than one genre. Visual novel horror game. Does it go into the visual novel category or does it go into horror? Well, I'm just gonna go with my initial gut instincts for these and I won't be doubling up. Like, you're not gonna be seeing the same physical release twice, so debate the placement all you want, but spare a thought for my dilemma. Speaking of which, let's start off with the random stuff. Physical releases that I don't really know how to categorize specifically, or games that are really mixed in the genre that it's hard for me to put them in just one. Or maybe they're just weird and I have no idea what the hell they are. Or maybe I know what they are, but the pool of other games in the same genre is incredibly limited and wouldn't warrant its own section in this video. For example, Stalker, Legends of the Zone Trilogy is a fantastic import release, one of the best. However, it's literally the only one that is a first-person shooter, so here it is in the miscellaneous section. So this includes 3 great atmospheric shooters in one package, and you should know, the listings for this physical release is wrong. If you read the store listings, it says there is a 20 GB download needed, plus an internet connection is required. Whoever provided that description to retailers should be fired because it's nonsense. All 3 games are on the cartridge, no internet is required, and yes, each game does have a small 50 MB patch, but it is completely unnecessary. This is such a great import exclusive that many people didn't import because they keep reading wrong information. No, it's great. Ace Angler for Nintendo Switch was the first Ace Angler game on the Nintendo Switch. Arcade fishing, it could be its own genre, but whatever. Lots of fun to be had with this one. Sadly, the import requires a download if you want English. Ace Angler Fishing Spirits is the second game on the Switch. Not only is it bigger, better, more expanded with lots of content, but the physical release has English on the cartridge from the get-go. If you want something a bit different for your Switch collection, this is something to definitely look at. Alpaca Ball All-Stars, it's football with alpacas, fluffy giraffe wannabes. Now, there were plans for a European physical release of this, but for whatever reason, it was cancelled. But you can still grab the Japanese or Asian versions if you want a surprisingly fun, party, fluffy, footy game. The bass fishing is the only bass fishing you'll ever need. I don't know why people are fishing for bass, they could just go to the guitar shop. But hey, who am I to judge if you want to try your luck in a pond where some angry rock star once stood next to you? I hope you managed to snag a P-bass, because they're badass. It's bass fishing, I know, okay, don't comment. It's a joke. Card Perfect Collection is the perfect collection of card games. One cannot get a thick paper-based pastime as flawless as this cartridge promises. Probably. Cats on Duty is a game that tries to be pretty much every genre under the sun. It's part real-time strategy, tower defense, puzzle game, deck builder, a real Frankenstein's monster of a game that comes out pretty well despite it. Looks like a casual mobile game, but it is a solid choice if you like something a bit different and a bit crazy. Disney Mirrorness Fitness is a fitness boxing game but with Mickey Mouse. Who the hell licenses this? Kids in Asia that are dependent on getting fit via some American mascot? Who knows? But it is an alternative to fitness boxing. This is releasing at the end of November. Perhaps a Western physical may be announced in the near future. Who knows? Dora, think! The thrilling brain adventure of Nobita. I mean, I'm half tempted to put this into the JRPG category because it is technically a JRPG. But, I mean, there's a lot of educational stuff in there too. It is a weird game that I'm absolutely amazed has English. Logic puzzles, RPG, Doraemon, English, what's going on? Fortress S is an artillery game, a bit like Worms but less interesting. It has a story mode and multiplayer options, and it's certainly gonna be fun. But does it have explosive sheep, holy hand grenades, and wonderfully insensitive accents? I think not. Menhera Farm and Masarada Town Story. This is a double pack of two games that are very different from one another. One is a simulation doll raising simulator, the other is an action RPG, so I decided to plonk this release here in the miscellaneous section. The most interesting thing about this release is that it was banned in the West. Nintendo of America and Europe rejected its digital release, so if you want it, you'll have to import this physical release from Singapore, and it plays in English like all the other games in this video, unless I say otherwise. Hololive Hollow's Hanafuda is a Hololive game. It's a Hanafuda card game. It's a bento box maker game. It might be one of the weirdest genre mixes in gaming history, but that just makes it all the more fascinating. If you want to play a Japanese card game while making your packed lunch for work tomorrow, why not? Kukiyomi 123 is a 3-in-1 package of games that test how polite you are, how considerate of a human being or as a gamer you are. You'll want to give up your seat on the bus for the pregnant lady, right? You're considerate. That's kind of what you have to do here. I guess it could be regarded as a puzzle game, but I don't know, whatever. Run for Money, Hunters vs Runners, can you win as either? Just what the hell kind of game this is, I don't know, but it looks grade A bobbins. It's the first game in the series that is available in English, coming in December, and it looks like one to only purchase if you're in it for the memes, because it looks like a terrible kind of game. Silver Star, Japan Table Games. Whoa, I thought we'd perfected the card game thing, like who's this pretender? Well, don't get so riled up because of the games included in this package, only one has English, and it is the chess game, for some reason. Who? Super Mash thrives on it being a mashup of genres because, I mean, it's literally what you do. You mix and match two game genres together to create something weird and unique. There aren't a huge amount of combinations, nor is each one a banger, but it is very interesting and often found very cheap. Table Games Deluxe Pack is a super cheap package of 7 different table-based games with 13 variations in total. If you want to play Mahjong, Oshogi cheap, and in English, well, it is the way to go. Taikan Sports Pack, Tennis, Bowling, Golf, and Billiards. This is the kind of crap that you'd see on the Wii, but now without the waggle, which could make them better or worse depending on your disposition. Honestly, I'd just stick to Wii games really. Touhou Genso Mahjong is an upcoming Mahjong game with the Touhou characters in English. If that's not enough reason to purchase it, well, it's not enough reason, but it seems quite cool to me. Variety Game, Daishugo, Kingyo Suiki, Kingyo Sukue, Card, Suji Puzzle, Nikakodori. I mean, this is pretty much bottom of the barrel when it comes to imports in my opinion. True shovelware of the highest order, and I'm shocked they even bothered with a physical release in this digital age. But if you want to import that specific one, or any of the games in this video, and there's a lot of them, I have them all for you. If you check the pinned comment or the description, I have put a link to a spreadsheet with all the games in this video and where to purchase them, if they're still available, that is. I'm not a magician. Now, importing can be tricky because not all regions are created equally. Sometimes the Hong Kong physical release of a game has English, but the Japanese release of the same game may not have English. And maybe vice versa. It is a minefield, but all the links in that spreadsheet are to the correct ones. I have guided you to the correct version so you don't waste your money on purchasing the wrong version. and any purchase made via those links supports me and this channel in the best way possible, and I do thank you from the bottom of my heart. This video takes an immense amount of research and writing and editing, so yeah, I do appreciate any support you can give via a purchase. Retro collections. These are physical releases that are compilations of various retro games, often meaning there can be a large variety of different genres within each physical release. And this is what you'll see in this category. Now, there will be retro compilations in other segments, but that will be because they are more uniform in the genre they represent. Probably, that's the plan anyways. I may balls this up. ACA Neo Geo Selection Volumes 1 to Volume 10. Yes, there are currently, or at least there will be, 10 volumes of these Neo Geo collections. Each volume has 10 Neo Geo games from SNK, so you can do the math how many Neo Geo games that is. You get so much variety here. Yeah, there are a lot of fighters, of course, that comes with the Neo Geo territory, but you get smatterings of shmups, beat-em-ups, sports arcade games, racing games, puzzlers, excellent stuff, and are all highly recommended by me. IGS Classic Arcade Collection gives you 8 games from arcade releases that were popular in Asian regions, mainly thanks to them having something to do with the Three Kingdoms era or the Monkey King theme to them. Honestly, surprisingly good, and I do like the Three Kingdoms beat-em-ups here much better than Capcom's renditions from back in the day. Namco Collection contains 10 Namco NES games. You get your staples like Pac-Man and Galaga, things like that. Now, one of the games in this package does not play in English, but it's not a big deal to be fair. There is also a lot of DLC for more games if you're inclined, but the cheap import is kinda cute. Steam Hearts and Advanced Variable Geo Saturn Tribute is a collection of 2 games that are very different from one another. One is a shooter, the other is a fighting game. Both games are pretty mid, and the original selling point was that they had naughty stuff in them. This does not have naughty stuff within it, and it's also worth noting that only the menus have English, not the actual games themselves. Sunsoft is Back Retro Game Selection contains 3 Famicom games that are finally in English for the first time. Not that we missed much. You get a platformer, a run and gun, and an adventure game. All pretty rudimentary, nothing worth going out of your way to play, but I appreciate the effort to get them in English. I just like it. Probably not worth an import for most though. Super Technos World, River City, and Technos Arcade Classics contains 12 Technos games that we never really see, at least in the West. Super Famicom and arcade games. We always used to get like the NES variants rather than these ones. Some games are better than others, and 2 of the games don't have English sadly, but the others do. Taito LD Game Collection. Now, this doesn't have complete English, but many say you can still get a decent amount of enjoyment out of these Laserdisc arcade games. They're like Dragon's Lair if it was Japanese and anime and awesome. You get Time Gal, Space Battleship Yamato, and Revenge of the Ninja. You press which button when instructed and watch awesome stuff happen if you succeed or fail. You might not know the whole story, but you get to see some cool stuff. Wolfgang / Skullfang Saturn Tribute Boosted Edition contains a run and gun mecha action game and a vertical shooter. I've never played either of them, but I'm sure they're very serviceable. JRPGs. Now, this is my favorite genre that I rarely have time for these days, but I do love a good story, some decent battles, and amazing music. The Nintendo Switch is home to many. In fact, it may be the greatest JRPG machine in history, and many physicals with English are import exclusives. Let's take a look. Now, I'm going to be breaking down the genre into smaller pieces, starting with the straight, no bones about it JRPG, your bog standard, undeniable JRPG. Atelier Dust Trilogy is one of many Atelier releases that are only available in English, physically, in Southeast Asia. This was the first, and it is a triple pack that contains 3 of the slightly older Atelier games, which have come a long way in recent years. This triple pack is not cheap, but you definitely get bang for your buck here. Atelier Marie Remake is definitely a different kind of Atelier game. It is a remake of the first game, and so it's kind of top down, has some strange combat, and definitely has a bigger focus on time management and alchemy. But it's charming and more old school, certainly worth a look if you wanted Atelier to be like it used to be. Only the Southeast Asian physical release has English. Atelier Mysterious Trilogy is another triple pack, slightly less essential due to one of the games getting a Western physical release already, but the other two did not. As long as you don't have that, this one certainly is worth the bang for your buck. And by the way, that one that did get a Western physical release, Lydian Suel, that is the base version, whereas this triple pack has the DX version with all the DLC and updates included. You get 3 meaty JRPGs packed with content and quality production value. Atelier Resliorana, The Red Alchemist and The White Guardian is a brand new entry in the franchise, and yet there's no Switch physical release in the West, which is incredibly disappointing. However, at least Southeast Asia is coming to the rescue with an English physical release. This is a very well-made chunky JRPG that will be a huge import that should probably be in your collection if you enjoy the genre. It's very good. Atelier Ryza Secret Trilogy DX is releasing in November, and while the original 3 games did get physical releases in the West, this DX trilogy has all manner of extra content, new characters, stories, never mind all the DLC included in the package. If you want this physical release, then you do need to get the Singapore version on Nintendo Switch to have it in English. That is the only place you can get it, and I think it's going to be a huge import regardless of if many people own the games already. Most people regard these as the best Atelier games. Brave Dungeon Dark Witch Story is an obscure double pack that only released in Japan on a website called B-Side Games, which are now defunct. In it, this double pack included 2 dinky JRPGs that originally made their mark on the 3DS as download titles. For a while, this became mildly expensive, but it's less necessary now thanks to the next physical release. Brave Dungeon W Pack contains both of those games, plus another game to make it a triple pack, and this actually released at retail in Japan, making it more widely available. Definitely one to get if you just want the games rather than going for something collectible. The new game added here is even meatier than the other 2 combined, so it stands nicely on its own. Chrono Cross Radical Dreamers Edition. I could have included this in the retro collections if I was being strict, since it contains a retro JRPG and a retro adventure game together, but let's face it, Chrono Cross is certainly the big selling point here. Radical Dreamers, as nice as it is more of a bonus. This fantastic JRPG somehow had to withstand the burden of the Chrono name. It's definitely not as good as Trigger, or even like the original. Like, why is it called Chrono Cross? We don't know why, but as a JRPG in its own right, it's pretty good. Dragon Quest Trilogy is a triple helping of the first 3 Dragon Quest games, remakes of the NES release, but not of the HD 2D kind. These were before that was even a thing. Some people don't like these remakes, but I enjoyed them for what they were. Obviously, the big budget remakes are probably the best way to play them these days, but still a nice curiosity that was a popular import once upon a time. Final Fantasy X and X Part 2 did get a Western physical release, but don't buy that one, okay? Buy the Asian or the Japanese version, since they have both games on the cartridge. There's no download needed. You'll actually own X Part 2 forever, no relying on servers in the future. I love Final Fantasy X, it is my second favorite in the series, and X Part 2 is, it's something, at least. Gensei Suikoden Plus sadly has nothing to do with Konami Suikoden. It's more like an RPG Maker type of RPG, but of what I played of it, I did like playing it, I liked it. Funny writing, solid if box standard gameplay, although it does have some martial arts aspects to the battle system. Apparently the series was a bit obscure in the 90s, and this is a remake. I'd never heard of it before, but I did enjoy this import exclusive. Guardian Tales for Nintendo Switch is a bit of a weird one. Technically it comes on a cartridge, but the game is a free-to-play game on the Switch, and this physical release only gives you some like bonus items, currency, things like that, and I believe it requires to be online as well, so yeah, it's not future-proof. But it is a cartridge, so make your mind up if you want it or not. Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1, 2, and 3 are 3 games that were going to get a Western physical release but had to be cancelled thanks to Nintendo's new guidelines. They wouldn't accept them, but Play Asia came to the rescue with these 3 Play Asia exclusive releases. Asian physicals but playing in English, and it's the only way to play them in English physically on the Switch. 3 separate releases that all came in both standard editions and collector's editions. At the time of me making this video, the first 2 are out, with the 3rd release following very soon. I Am Setsuna was not only the first JRPG import exclusive with English, but it was the first import exclusive with English ever. Launch day in Japan. And it's a pretty decent time. I think this game walked so that games like Octopath Traveler could run. Not a AAA budget, but enough to keep most of us happy. The battle system is reminiscent of Chrono Trigger, with a more boring story. Not great, but not bad either. Kemco RPG Omnibus is a super random release from Southeast Asia. I think it was mostly an experimental thing rather than anything else, and this includes 4 mini JRPGs from Kemco, and not really worth importing because there's now a much more uniform and satisfying set of releases that I'm gonna talk about now. Kemco RPG Selections Volume 4 to Volume 12. Yes, there are 12 volumes of these Kemco RPG selections, but the West has or is going to get 3 of them, with potentially more in the future. So at the time of making this video, only 4 to 12 are import exclusives, and each volume contains 4 mini JRPGs. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing you should rush out to buy, but there's something quite charming about them, and the different colored box arts is very nice and uniform that it makes it quite addictive to collect. The Legend of Mana Remastered is a fantastic JRPG, one of the more mysterious out there. Everyone who plays it will have a slightly different experience due to the placement of the locations on the map that will create small differences. It's action in its battle system, but it is a lot of fun, and definitely my favorite game in the Mana series. This Southeast Asian import exclusive is one of the biggest imports of all time. Marissa of Lair Top Mountain is a recent import exclusive. It's more like a tabletop JRPG thanks to its cool presentation. It might be one of the best looking Touhou franchise games that I've ever seen. Not that that's saying much, but still, it is a game I want to play. Looks pretty good, all things considered. Meg's Monster is technically a JRPG. It's made in Japan, it has turn-based battles, but it is a very short game with a focus mainly on the story, which is supposedly very, very good. It will make you cry, so I've heard. It's only like 4 hours long, so some of you will second guess importing it, and that's fine, but it's good at doing what it wants to do. It wants to make you cry with the story. Monster Hunter Stories did get a Western physical release, however, for some insane reason, that release was bundled with a download code for the second game too, which bloated the price immensely. However, Japan was sensible, and the game got a physical release by itself for a very affordable price. Originally a 3DS game, it is like a Pokemon-like JRPG that has very good production value. Mugen Souls and Mugen Souls Z are 2 separate physical releases that are Play Asia exclusives. Ports of a couple of PS3 games that look like Disgaea but play like any other Idea Factory JRPG, so you kinda know what you're gonna get. These are uncensored compared to their original releases, which is nice, I suppose. Octopath Traveler and Octopath Traveler 2 Bundle is a popular import despite both of these games getting individual physical releases in the West. This Southeast Asian double pack contains both games together and complete on cartridge. There is no updates or downloads to be had. Not only do you save shelf space, but it also turns out to be a bit cheaper than buying the 2 individual releases. Many people sold their 2 copies, bought this one, and made a small profit, and they are quality JRPGs to boot. Romancing Saga 2 got a physical release in Hong Kong, and although it's not the big budget remake of the game we got last year, it's more of an enhanced port of the original game. It's a JRPG, old school in nature, but idiosyncratic even for the time. It was the first time it was released in English, and fairly popular as an import. Sadly, due to the remake that's pretty fresh, this physical edition is out of print. Romancing Saga 3 came out physically on the Switch before the second game. In Southeast Asia, it got a curious cover version, and that is the best one to get even if you don't particularly like the artwork, because later on, it did get a physical release in Hong Kong with some very beautiful artwork, but sadly, the publisher for that compressed the game to make it fit on a smaller cartridge, so visually it is not as crisp. But it is cheaper, so it's up to you. Again, another great but unusual JRPG from Square back in the day. This was the first time it was in English for us Westerners. SaGa Emerald Beyond is the latest brand new entry in the franchise, even if it's not the latest release. Unlike the remake of the second game, this did not get a Western physical release, and the only way to get it physically is in English via the Asian release. Do not buy the Japanese one, okay? This is going back to being a bit old school, not only in its obviously limited budget, but also gameplay mechanics. SaGa Frontier is my favorite game in the SaGa franchise, probably because it's not much like the other games in the series. It's a bit more mainstream for the era, and that does it a lot of favors. That's not to say it's your bog standard Final Fantasy type RPG though. It does have its own idiosyncrasies, but it's the one that I highly advise you delve into first. It is a great game with some great little stories in it. SaGa Frontier 2 Remastered came much later on, and I find it odd they called it Frontier 2. As great as this game is, it's nothing like Frontier 1. It should have been a different SaGa game. It is one of the most beautiful PS1 games thanks to its art style, and the gameplay is super solid and of course unique. Following two different stories that merge together, you can play chapters in different orders if you want. The only bad thing about the import exclusive is the pretty naff cover art. SaGa Scarlet Grace Ambitions was a PlayStation Vita game, now on Nintendo Switch. It did get a physical release in Japan pretty early on in the Switch's life, but that one does not have English. Many years later there was a Hong Kong physical release, and that is the one you're gonna want because that has English. I know the series has its fans, but I feel this is where the series lost its momentum, especially internally with Square due to the lack of budget and production value compared to what came before. 7 Pirates H is a busty pirating adventure, the physical release of which is exclusive to Play Asia, at least if you want it in English. Of all the Compile Heart Idea Factory stuff, this is actually not all that bad. The gameplay is really competent, the gimmicks are quite fun, and the story isn't unbearable. Taiko no Tatsujin RPG Adventure is borderline as to which category I should put it in, but I settled on RPG because it's funny. These are two games with rhythm gameplay that you'd expect in the Taiko no Tatsujin universe, but charmingly, they've wrapped them up in adventure RPGs where you walk around, you talk to NPCs, get into random battles. If you want this in English, you'll specifically have to purchase the Southeast Asian version. Twin Blades of the Three Kingdoms is a surprisingly nice RPG based on the Three Kingdoms story, although it does go well off the rails. It is a budget indie title that looks super cheap, like an RPG Maker type of game, but it actually plays very nicely. If you enjoyed Destiny of an Emperor on the NES back in the day, it's like that, but better, and it was a Play Asia exclusive. Various Daylife is a mobile game from Square Enix, originally made for Apple Arcade. Apple's valiant push into the gaming subscription market spawned this, but eventually it did come to consoles, and the physical release was only in Southeast Asia. Reviews for it are pretty negative, which I think mainly comes from expectations. It still has the design of a mobile game, which will put some people off, despite the budget looking like a proper release akin to like Bravely Default. Valette is a recent big JRPG exclusive, developed by Furyu, who have had loads of their JRPGs at retail in the West, but this one didn't come. That's despite it having English. It is a school life JRPG that wants to be Persona, and it is a valiant effort. Not every idea works, and it's obviously on a very limited budget, but I enjoyed the 8 hours or so that I played so far, and I found the battle system to be very interesting. World of Final Fantasy Maxima was an early import exclusive JRPG, one that surprised many, a decent budget Square Enix JRPG that physically was only available in Southeast Asia. What's going on? This is a weird but good celebration of the franchise, bringing many major characters together into one and using them almost like Pokemon. It's very interesting. .hack GU Last Recode technically did get a North American physical release, but it was only available on Bandai's own web store, so since it wasn't at retail, as far as I know, I often include it as a potential import, because here you get 3 JRPGs in one, plus a brand new epilogue to round off the story. 4 episodes of action RPG battles as you get all techno-futuristic with the storyline, a game within a game sort of thing. Big games for the time, that is for sure. Alright, dungeon crawling RPGs. They are RPGs but focus on dungeon crawling. Who would have thought that? Often moving one step at a time, feeling your way around the dungeon in an old school fashion. Some can be a bit grindy and also neglect the story, but there are some really sweet games in this genre. Aria Chronicle is one I've not played, but I've always wanted to. It's been out of print for a long time now, but seems to be following a darkest dungeon type of thing, now with anime stuff going on. Some Japanese gameplay tropes in there too, and it looks pretty decent. Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon is definitely one I recommend to those wanting to sample the Mystery Dungeon series or its gameplay style. Usually brutal and unforgiving, this is a gentle introduction with some great production value, charming as anything, and this Switch version has some big new mechanics that make it very different if you played it on the Wii back in the day. Dungeon and Gravestone is a nice, mysterious little game. I remember when I was reviewing it for Switch Watch many years ago, and I asked the developer for some explanation of various mechanics and items and such, but he said, no, I want you to uncover it for yourself, and I massively respected that because that's a lost art in video games these days. Is this the best video game ever? Absolutely not. It is a super simple mystery dungeon game, but it lives up to its name of having a lot of mystery about it. Dungeon Encounters was when Square Enix were extremely reluctant to hand out budgets to their teams. This is as lo-fi as Square Enix can get. This is a no-fluff dungeon crawler that is back to basics, which I think was a nice experiment even if it's tough to get into or see anything other than an indie game, but the physical release for this was only in Southeast Asia. Etrian Odyssey Collection is a huge import exclusive. In fact, it's one of the top 10 biggest imports of all time, and for good reason. You get 3 massive, chunky content-filled dungeon crawling RPGs that are the best in the business. When these released on the DS originally, they weren't revolutionary, but they managed to resonate with a lot more people than the genre had done previously. A decent budget, fun concept, and a gameplay progression that worked in a nice way. It's highly recommended, but do not buy the Japanese physical version, okay? Only the Hong Kong or Korean versions have English. Katana Kami is an action dungeon crawling RPG that's a bit like Moonlighter in the fact that you delve into dungeons at night, loot it for all it's worth, then come back and work in your blacksmiths during the day. Who needs sleep? Am I just ancient in that I need 8 hours of sleep just to function properly as a human? I don't know. Anyways, this used to be a very expensive import, but the price has come down a lot now. Mershin Forest is one of the weirdest games of all time. It has 3 gameplay styles that change as you complete each section of the game. The first is a little adventure cozy thing, before the next 2 are slightly different takes on the dungeon crawling RPG genre. I can't fully recommend this, but it has a charm and it feels like a fever dream. Mistover is a physical release that's sought after not because of its quality as a game, but the fact that the game is now completely delisted from all digital stores. It's been deleted from existence. Physical media for the win. Not that this offers anything good to play, it's mainly down to the principle of the thing. Moro Crystal H is one of the biggest imports of all time, and this is a Play Asia exclusive, their biggest one ever. Surprising, since I think in terms of quality, they've had some bigger, better releases over the years, but this came at just the perfect time for the Switch and for collectors. This is a lewd dungeon crawling RPG with phallic-shaped enemies and scantily clad ladies in your team, all tongue-in-cheek and a bit risque, and only get the Play Asia version since that is the only one that has English. Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation Quest of Memories is a bit of a genre mix. I wasn't entirely sure where to put it, but comments online seem to suggest that dungeon crawling was the meat of the matter. Based on an anime, this is a licensed tie-in that needed a bit more love and time in the oven to make it actually a good game. Omega Labyrinth Life is another popular import. Probably would have been more popular if it had regular stock over the years. This is a mystery dungeon light, nowhere near as harsh, but it follows similar gameplay principles in the dungeon crawling, but that's not what made this game so infamous. It is the touching up of girls to get their juices. Yeah, that's an actual minigame in this game. If you want English, you need to play the Hong Kong version. Don't buy the Japanese edition since that one does not have English. Quest of Dungeons is a dinky little dungeon crawling RPG. I believe it has roots in mobile gaming, but still a competent time as you choose your class and go looting. Simple graphics, but a decent amount of content. The physical was only in Southeast Asia. Tokyo Clampool is a Play Asia exclusive if you want the English version. This was one of those games banned in the West. It didn't even get released digitally on Western eShops. This is a bit like Moro Crystal H, same dev, same style, less tongue-in-cheek. I believe despite best efforts, the game was censored for this release too. Apparently a minigame had to be yanked out for whatever reasons. Touhou Genso Wanderer Foresight and Lotus Labyrinth R are two games in the same series that follow the same gameplay styles. They're both Mystery Dungeon style games, but with over-the-top representation of the Touhou franchise with lots of character and enemies on screen at once. I haven't played them, but I do like the genre, so I've always been a bit intrigued by them. There is another game in the series called Reloaded, but that one did get a Western physical release quite early on in the Switch's life. Wizardry: The Five Ordeals is a port of a game from 2006. Despite being a Western-owned franchise, Japan goes mad for these games and often has exclusive entries, and this seems to be the case of one of those. Despite the previous game in the franchise on the Switch getting a Western physical release thanks to limited run and at retail in Europe, this newer entry has not even been hinted at. Expect something extremely old school, lots of numbers, lots of grind, lots of brutality. Strategy RPGs, yes, the games where we have to use our brains just a little bit more than usual. As a genre that's also popular in the West thanks to the sudden popularity of Fire Emblem, there aren't many exclusives to import, but still a few huge games you may want to consider. Cross Tales, I think, is quite underrated. I know the remaster of Final Fantasy Tactics is out to destroy the competition, but before that came out, Cross Tales did a surprisingly decent job of capturing what made Tactics so great. The only issue is the very dodgy English translation. It lacked any sort of personality, often didn't make too much sense, but if you just in it for the gameplay, it was still quite good. Dragoness Command of the Flame is a cheap import exclusive, often found for less than 20 bucks, and I think that's due to the quality of the game. It's not really all that great, it looks a bit cheap too. It is a game that's inspired by the Heroes of Might and Magic series, which may tickle some people's fancy though. Just saying that franchise brought back a lot of suppressed memories for me. Empire of Angels 4 is another case of don't judge a book by its cover. This is a childish looking game, as you are in a world of only women who are at war with each other as they should be. The graphics look overly cheap, but actually the gameplay is really solid. The maps and the challenges are well thought out, and this was a Play Asia exclusive release. Pretty good. Front Mission 3, somehow, at the time of me writing this video, does not have a Western physical release. That is despite the previous two games getting one of some kind. The first was at retail, the second was at limited run and forever limited in their respective regions, but nothing has been said of Front Mission 3, which is the one that surely the West is the most nostalgic for. It is a strategy RPG with mechs, solid, but there were some issues with the remake. SD Gundam G-Generation Cross-Rays and the Platinum Edition are two releases of the same game, but you'll definitely want the Platinum Edition if you're going to choose one, since that contains all the DLC content. Here you get a fantastic strategy RPG that follows the episodes of many different anime, going through their story arcs and you affecting the story. It may not sound like much, but there is an extreme amount of content here, and the battle animations are always a treat. SD Gundam G-Generation Genesis is an earlier game in the series, but was ported to the Switch later than Cross-Rays, at least the one that has English. Yeah, be careful which one you buy, okay? You will want the Singapore edition if you want the English release. I have linked to the correct one in the document below. This is more of the same really, and will be an instant purchase for those who are fans of the animes represented here, and strategy RPGs in general. Super Robot Wars 30, T, V, X, and Y are 5 separate releases, each of which have their own peculiarities when it comes to which releases have English. Again, I've linked to the ones that have English in the document below, okay? Don't make a mistake, do not order the ones that don't have English. It's a very easy mistake to make, and a costly one. But anyways, for me, this is where the Switch importing scene really took off. To have games as massive and as quality as these being confined to Asian regions, but having English, wow, I mean, they're gems. Again, they are strategy RPGs, but unlike G-Generation that I just talked about, each of these have their own unique story. It's not like a retelling of an anime episode or anything. Massive stories that have brand new characters fighting alongside and against legendary anime heroes. For me, they are all great, but in reality, you probably need to only try one first before you dive into them all. They are all incredibly similar, but I love them. Fantastic, badass attack visuals and endless amounts of gameplay. Beat 'em ups. hardly my favorite genre in the world. While they start off fun, by the 20-minute mark I usually get a bit bored with the repetitive gameplay and the credit-munching difficulty, but there is a big fan base out there and the genre's seen a nice resurgence in the past 5 years or so. There may be some you want to import. Bad Boy Brother is an upcoming budget title that is a beat 'em up mixed in with some kind of mahjong system which can help strengthen your abilities. Super weird, but I'm very intrigued by it. I'm not expecting to be blown away by this, but the prospect has charmed me. I also like the Smash Bros style takedowns. Capcom Belt Action contains 8 Capcom arcade beat-em-ups from their golden era when they were the kings of arcade beat-em-ups. Sadly, it doesn't include Alien vs Predator for licensing issues, but you got some good stuff in here, including one game that never saw a home port, not even a dodgy one, until this release. Night Slasher's remake looks like one of the worst remakes ever due to the visual style, but apparently the gameplay is faithful to the well-enjoyed original. I'm surprised this never got a Western physical release due to the publisher, who do have their own physical label, but maybe even they don't have the faith in it. Quit Today is a beat 'em up that's releasing at the end of October in Japan, probably already out by the time this video goes out, but it is a budget title as you beat up your colleagues in the workplace. If they won't listen to your words, they may listen to your fists. You just know this was made by a dude who worked in an office for 18 months after graduating school and could not bear it, and I don't blame them. River City Rival Showdown is a remake of sorts of the original River City game with new story elements and gameplay enhancements. There's even a new secondary mode that's a fighting game. If you grew up with this game as a kid, you will likely get a big kick out of this one. River City Saga 3 Kingdoms and 3 Kingdoms Next are 2 fun beat-em-ups, more like adventure games with beat-em-up style gameplay, and I really enjoyed them. It's Kunio-kun but set in the 3 Kingdoms era, which makes them pretty awesome. Sadly, you do have to be careful which one you purchase since not all versions have English. Don't buy the Japanese ones, okay? SD Shin Kamen Rider Rumble is a super deformed beat-em-up starring the Kamen Rider characters. Due to its quite limited release in the English-speaking sphere, reviews and opinions are thin on the ground, but it appears to be a short, fun, inoffensive action game. Only by the Southeast Asian Physical though, since that is the only one that has English. Strategy. Different from strategy RPGs from the fact that there's little to no RPG elements, or no structured story to the gameplay. There are not many, but there are a couple of my favorite imports ever in this little section. Battle Cats Unite. Is it a strategy game? I'm not entirely sure. It kinda looks like it, but it also looks kinda weird. I don't even want to try it, but the eShop listing says strategy, so let's roll with that. Based on a mobile game, just without the microtransactions, you take on 300 stages with many unique cat types to take on the invading dogs. Obviously, exceedingly cute, quirky, and includes mini-games if you want to take a breather from the main campaign. I believe all versions of the physical releases have English, however the Asian release is the preferred one since it has it on the cartridge, whereas Japan, it's a download. But Kanyar, I'll be honest, I've played this game and I still don't know what kind of game to call it. Maybe it's a bit too actiony to call it a proper strategy game. You're piloting a boat, round in a circle and popping off shots. It's not something Sun Tzu would be wholly proud of, but whatever. This has one of the worst English translations ever, which I think might even enhance the experience because it's so bad. Aside from that, there's ship customization and sea combat, which is kind of fun. I like it. Nobunaga's Ambition Awakening is a real-time strategy game set in feudal Japan. It's the only game in the long-running Nobunaga's Ambition series that has English on the Switch, physically, and only in Southeast Asia. It is a tough game, especially to get used to the real-time aspects. Like, I'm used to the 3 Kingdoms stuff with turn-based stuff, but this is real-time, and there's a lot more stress with this, at least compared to the next couple of Koei games I'm going to be talking about. Romance of the 3 Kingdoms 8 Remake is one of my favorite games on the Switch. In fact, it might be my favorite one. And taking out all the time my daughters use to play my Switch with Pokemon and Animal Crossing, this is my most played Switch game ever. A fantastic remake, adding and tweaking aspects to the original to make it one of the most addictive and replayable games on the system. It won't be for everyone, but I love this to bits, and it is a dream remake in my opinion. I cannot stop conquering China. However, if you want the English physical release, only Southeast Asia has it. But you may want to hold off for a little bit, okay? Because Romance of the Three Kingdoms 8 Remake, Destiny and Strategy Expansion Pack is one to look forward to in the future. Just announced, this takes the base game and expands it with new features, authentic Chinese voice acting, as well as plenty of tweaks and loads of little stuff. Interestingly, this has not been announced for even a Western digital release, never mind physical, so the Southeast Asian Singapore release will be the only way to get this in English on a console. It's the only version that it'll have it. Romance of the Three Kingdoms, 14 long ass subtitle. Okay, I'm not gonna say it all. This came out before those 8 remakes and includes the base game alongside the expansion pack. But that hasn't ruled out the game having a lot of DLC to purchase separately. Koei's DLC policies aside, this is a very nice strategy game, this time only taking charge of the ruler rather than anyone you want. So even though it's part of the same series, it plays very differently and is just as addictive. Again, only the Southeast Asian physical release has English, and it's probably my second most played Switch game ever. Racing! There are not a lot of racing games on the Nintendo Switch, at least that are import exclusives, but enough to justify their own category. Genso Skydrift is probably the most unusual racing game in terms of imports, but it's alphabetically first. This is a racing game starring the Touhou characters as they zip around on the backs of other characters. Obviously not the most serious kart racer out there, but can be a bit of pick up and play fun. Mantis Burn Racing was one of the earlier import exclusive racing games, and it was originally due for a physical release in the West, but was cancelled for unknown reasons. This is a content-rich package that plays in a top-down perspective. It's decent, but it does lack a sense of speed for me personally. Mario Kart 8 Plus Booster Pack did get a release in the West, but in the Middle East it is better since there are cartridges out there that have all the DLC on the cartridge with no download required. There is no Western version like that, so yeah, it can be tough to know which one does have the DLC, which one does not have the DLC, since the packaging all kind of looks the same sometimes. In fact, sometimes they're identical, but look out for VGP's listing, as they will always carry the better version. They always check first. MotoGP 24 and 25 are 2 physical releases that are superior in Japan compared to the West, because North America never got it at all, whereas Europe, just a code in a box. These Japanese editions have the game on the cartridge. If you need more fast bike racing, then you can look into these, although the previous editions won't be that much different and probably cost less. Rush Rally Collection is a collection of 2 indie rally games from the same developer. One is a top-down game, while the other is something similar to SaGa Rally from Behind. They look simple and play simply too, but enjoyable for what they are, and this physical release was a Play Asia exclusive. Platformer. Platformer is such a broad term these days that this is going to be a fairly large group of games that are similar mostly on the surface level. You run, you jump. Maybe you shoot things, maybe you slash things, maybe you explore a bit more in one game compared to another. Maybe you even level up in some of them. It's going to be an eclectic mix, okay? As Your Striker Gunvolt Trilogy Enhanced contains 3 games that did get a physical release in the West in some capacity. However, if you want these enhanced editions that include voice acting, enhanced story features, more music and gameplay tweaks to make everything the best it's been, then you'll need this trilogy collection that is an import exclusive. Battle Princess Madeline is an import exclusive despite Limited Run doing a version of this game. This Japanese release is the original version before the developer decided to pretty much redo the entire game, at least in terms of gameplay flow. This Japanese edition suffered from Kickstarter bloat, where the stretch goals made the game into something the dev didn't originally envision. So this is like the fan version of the game basically. If you want the original version, then you go for the Limited Run one. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon Chronicles is a fantastic little double pack of games that Limited Run did individually. These games are great homages to the classic Castlevania titles. 8-bit style, great gameplay that many say is better than the main Bloodstained game. This double pack is affordable and definitely worth importing if you enjoy classic Vania. Bow, Path of the Teal Lotus is a really great Metroidvania that came out at the wrong time to get a Western physical release, since unlike the Japanese publisher, the Western publisher has significant financial issues which probably prevented it, but still a gorgeous game that's well worth importing if you like great gameplay alongside a strikingly beautiful art style. Buckbound Brigade is a Metroidvania that was an import exclusive fairly early on. Not many people talk about this one now. It does not have the best reviews, but it has you gaining abilities from literary greats of the past as you come together to recover the Book of Books. Care Bears to the rescue! Not to be confused with Unlock the Magic, which released at a similar time in the West. To the Rescue, like this one, is a Japanese exclusive physical release, and to be honest, it looks the better of the two since it is a standard platformer rather than a party board game. I don't know if it's any good, but you know, it's Care Bears, you can't expect too much. The Company Man is a pretty standard indie platformer. It's fairly gimmick-free and feels like an earlier indie effort, something you'd see on Xbox Live, but it's good, I'm not trying to insult it. In fact, it can be quite refreshing to have something simple but well made. Here you go through various work or office-related areas and whack people with a keyboard. Georifters looks extremely bad. Visually, it's horrendous. However, the gameplay isn't all that bad really. A fun enough action game with a graspable gameplay style. The issue here is that the digital release is often like 99 pence or something like that, which makes a physical purchase rather difficult to stomach. Ghost 1.0 and Unepic is a nice double pack that was a Play Asia exclusive. It contains the two games which thematically are quite different from one another, but they're both Metroidvanias as far as I can remember. Ghost 1.0 is definitely the star of the show, but Unepic is decent too. Gift is a cute little platformer that reminds me of a little bit of Little Nightmares. It's got that slightly surreal art style that fans of those games and maybe Limbo will enjoy. Reviews are decent enough for it as well if you want something atmospheric. Golf Club Wasteland is actually the old name of the game Golf Club Nostalgia, which had to change its name due to copyright complaints. This is a puzzle platformer where you golf side-scrollingly through the post-apocalypse. Apparently this is a genre now because there's more than one game of this kind of premise. It's kind of crazy, but it's good though. Handy Games Deluxe Pack is 3 platformers in one. You get One Hand Clapping, Pile Up, Box by Box, and Gianna Sisters Twisted Dreams, the latter of which did get a Western physical release, but the other two did not. Inti Creates Gold Archive Collection. This is a triple pack, 66% of which are action platformers. Mighty Gunvolt and Mighty Gunvolt Burst, plus the final game is a puzzle game called Puzz Mix, but whatever, I'm putting it in this section. The first 2 games were download indie hits back on the 3DS, and many saw them as the spiritual successor to the Mega Man series. Very good, and the physical import is very affordable. Is it wrong to try and pick up Girls in the Dungeon? Familiar Myth. Full Land of Water and Light is a side-scrolling action game, not one that I've played, mainly because I don't think I could be bothered to search the name of the game, it's just too damn long. I would expect a serviceable but forgettable gaming experience that only fans of the franchise may want to seek out. Jump King is probably the most precision of precision platformers out there. A game where the longer you hold down the jump button, the further you jump, and any slight mistake can be soul-crushing. I learned that this game has a surprisingly large cult following thanks to the speedrunning scene and mods, and the Japanese release is out of print and can command quite a large price now, so that's also probably thanks to the speedrunning community. Kero Blaster is a game from the same developer as Cave Story, and let's face it, it doesn't really look like much. You think something as simple as this wouldn't allow for a good gameplay experience, but as a run-and-gun platformer, it's supposed to be really good in fact. Not as industry-opening as Cave Story, but still a fun time. And this physical release was an exclusive to One Print Games in Asia. Lapin is an upcoming import exclusive coming at the end of October. It's a precision platformer where you have a family of rabbits, each with their own weirdly human face. It looks super cute, but it does have a high difficulty level. Sounds like the devs were traumatized by Watership Down as a kid. Lost Epic is an action RPG and one of the low-key bigger imports when it released last year. You know, there are the big imports that everyone rushes out to buy, but the rest tend to be just, a handful of people importing them. Well, when this released, this sort of managed to stand out. Quite a lot of people imported this one, despite the lack of, well, it's not a blockbuster release, but it has got a gorgeous art style, and if you like Vanillaware and Souls-like difficulty, you may enjoy it too. Magical Delicacy is a combat-free Metroidvania where you explore around your town, gather ingredients, and cook up a storm. The cooking mechanic is supposedly quite in-depth and can be quite a hurdle to get into, but perhaps worth persevering with. Majogami is Inti Create's next upcoming big game at the time of me making this video, and it's an important release. Not only is it releasing physically on Nintendo Switch, but also physically on Nintendo Switch 2. I'll talk about that more at the end of this video, but this is Inti Creates creating a new kind of art style compared to what we're used to. It remains to be seen if it's good or not, but the demo has got me fairly excited. At worst, it'll just be solid. Mega Man Legacy Collection 2 is available physically only in Japan. Yes, the second half of the OG series is one of the most difficult imports to actually get without paying hundreds of dollars for it. The only way to get Mega Man 7, 8, 9, and 10 physically was in a unique big box set bundle. All the other releases of this made this half of the collection a download code, but that box set has a proper cartridge, and boy is it expensive. Mega Man X Anniversary Collection 2 is similar but less difficult to get. The arse end of the X series was a download code in Japan and North America in the standard editions, but Capcom in Japan gave players a choice. They could either buy the full collection together with half being a download, or pay more and get two separate proper cartridges, and that's where the Anniversary Collection 2 comes in. It released by itself. It's not easy to get a hold of these days, but not impossible like the box set release. Although, to be fair, Anniversary Collection 2 is also in that box set, so you're kind of getting two import exclusives in one box set. Still not worth it though. Montezuma's Revenge is an upcoming remake of a classic game, and I'm not talking in the quality sense, just the fact that it's ancient, but it was quite popular at the time. This platform treasure hunting thing has its fans, but honestly this remake looks worse than the original, I have to be honest. The physical release is a Play Asia exclusive. Neversong and Pinstripe did get individual physical releases in Europe, but if you're hard up for shelf space, then this affordable Japanese double pack will be a nice import for you. Two solid indie games made by the same person, oozing with atmosphere. The game, not the person. That would be unpleasant. Nightmare the Lunatic is an upcoming release in December, and this is a roguelite platformer where you constantly swap between 3 weapons to fit your current situation. You'll either die or loop the game and slowly, permanently increase your abilities to make your life easier. If you've played Dead Cells, you'll probably like this. Oniken and Odalis is a double pack that was exclusive to Play Asia physically. Both games made by the same person, retro in style, and both very good if you like imitations of 8-bit games. They play slightly differently with a different kind of pacing. Panic in Sweetsland is a spin-off of the Waku Waku Sweets puzzle game series. One day they woke up and thought, you know what I'm gonna make? I'm gonna make it into an action platformer. And while this won't win any awards, they did a solid job. If you like making combos and crushing monsters with anime girls, why not? Psychic 5 Eternal is a remake of an old arcade game that I'd never heard of prior to this release. It's not the best looking remake out there, it looks very cheap, but you can play with the original graphics if you want to. There are more levels and characters to play as you jump around and do stuff in an arcadey kind of way. Rabby Ribby Platinum Edition is a cute little Metroidvania that is very well loved by many bunny girl in Lycra fans. I wonder why. Good game despite the visuals. Now this did get some pre-orders from Sekai Project for a North American physical release exclusively on their website. I know it didn't sell too well and you can't order it anymore, so I'm curious as to if that's been cancelled or not. Rolling Sky Collection is an obscure import exclusive. It's a double pack of games that are quite different from one another in presentation, even though the gameplay is very similar. They're almost auto runners, like running vertically and dodging stuff, picking stuff up, very mobile-like, and although they're decent for what they set out to do, it's obvious as to why not many people bought this package. Rusted Moss is a well-received Metroidvania with the gimmick of being a twin-stick shooter, and you're grappling all over the place, swinging around like nobody's business. Nothing quite like pulse rifling your way through a Metroid-style map. Rusty Rabbit is a simple 2D action platformer made by Nitro Plus of all companies. Yeah, if you know who Nitro Plus are, you know this was a weird choice of game for them. There is a focus on story though, with the characters which is more in line with the developer, and that's supposedly the best part about the game. The gameplay is a bit forgettable. Silver Axe, the Honest Elf Master Edition, is another obscure physical release that was announced and then released within a matter of weeks. Labeled as a Metroidvania, but that is a bit on the minimum side. There are lots of boss battles which many people will say make it a boss rush kind of thing, but I don't know. Sunblaze is a precision platformer. If Celeste was found in a charity shop under some old lady's worthless tea set, you'd probably get Sunblaze, but that doesn't mean it's not good. I mean, it tries to be Celeste and succeeds in the I didn't have enough time to make Celeste kind of way. Super Retro Platformer Collection is a 3D platformer collection. Well, half 3D. This contains 4 games published by the same people. Tori 3D, MacBat 64, Regina and Mac, and Commander Keen. The 3D games are definitely the big attractions here. They may only be extremely short, but they have been a big part in the 64-bit revival of the platforming genre, and the developer has gone on to make bigger and better things since. Xuan Earth Escape might be one of the worst looking platformers I've ever seen. It is a game that makes most Western shovelware seem like Donkey Kong Country. This is one just to get for the memes rather than, worth playing. Tasamachi is one of the most chill platformers out there. It's a 3D collectathon that I really enjoyed. It's got some gorgeous looking visuals. It's not difficult. There are plenty of things to do. It may lack the extra step that takes it above, cute indie game, but I do recommend it. It's worth playing on Switch 2, which will smooth out all the performance issues on the original Switch. That time, I got reincarnated as a slime. Isekai Chronicles is a side-scrolling action RPG game that has some town-building elements. It's not super great and feels a bit like a cheap attempt from Bandai to cash in on an IP rather than making a good game, but it's serviceable, nothing to write home about. The city building is particularly uninspired. Umbra Claw is an action platformer from Inti Creates, and it's got a really striking visual design. I think Inti Creates are trying to get away from their signature art style in their recent games, and this is one of those that started it. It looks like a stained glass window sort of thing, and the action is supposed to be pretty good too. Yohane the Parhelion, Blaze in the Deep Blue is a simple but satisfying Metroidvania. Now there are 2 Yohane games on the Switch that are import exclusive, and this is definitely the easier recommendation of the 2. It's developed by Inti Creates, and while it's not their finest creation, it does its job nicely. Solid design, using your friends as your upgrade powers, it's a funny touch. 7th Domain, The Tree of Chaos, is a Leo full special, by which I mean they announced it and released it within a week. I love it. It's a roguelike Metroidvania. It's basically Dead Cells, but obviously not as good. There's a skill tree, as well as a tarot card mechanic, some decent fast-paced action, but look out for the English translation. I don't know if it was tidied up for the console release. Apparently when it originally released, it was pretty bad. Adventure games. What do I personally see as an adventure game? Well, something with a bit more on the relaxing side, maybe a bit of wandering about, maybe a bit of puzzle solving. Maybe there will be some combat or danger here and there, but not enough to make it an action adventure game, okay? Let me know if you think I'm wrong in categorizing these games. A Street Cat's Tale is a double pack of 2 games. They are slightly different from one another. One is pure adventure, while the other has more survival aspects to it. There are many cat-focused games on the Switch these days, and these 2 are welcome additions that any cat fans can collect. I'm gonna go with cat collect something. I don't know. I'm working on that pun. Akupara Narrative Pack has 3 games in 1 cartridge. Now all 3 games included here, Behind the Frame, Mutazione, and Etherborn, all have physical releases in North America individually. So these artsy-fartsy games in this import triple pack is only really a decent way to save shelf space and get them for a cheaper price. Alba is a cute little adventure game that you wish lasted just a little bit longer. You visit an island, help the locals, and catalogue all the wildlife on the island via photographing them. Sounds like my perfect chill kind of game, but it's only a few hours long though, which is its biggest sin. If you find it affordably, then it will be a nice one to have. Artist Impact is quite a way off, so much time in fact that, there's plenty of room for a Western physical announcement in the future. But if not, then this looks like it could be a beautiful adventure game. It likes to tag itself as a JRPG, but the developers are pretty much lying to you about that. Sure, it has some elements, but it's definitely an adventure game at its beautiful heart. Azura's Crystal is an import exclusive that kept getting delayed for some reason, and it's also very mysterious because there's been no effort whatsoever to publicize the damn thing. Like, where's the marketing for this? I gather that it's a 3D collectathon sort of thing, but who knows? Beautiful Desolation is an old school top-down adventure game. It reminds me of old PC games that I could only look at the back of the box of in the shops because I didn't even know anyone with a PC on my council estate. Comparisons will be directed at Disco Elysium, not in terms of quality, just in, what to expect. Behind the Frame and the star named Eos. Yes, Behind the Frame is back again. I mentioned it in the Akupara narrative pack a minute ago, but this double pack bundles it with the star named Eos, which does not have any kind of physical release in the West, so that's the star of this package for sure. Bokora Planet is another double pack, and this contains 2 adventure puzzle games where teamwork is key. You can only play these 2-player and communicate with each other to get through the narrative. Supposedly very good, but perhaps not universally viable to play. Kamen is an upcoming physical release, which is an adventure RPG sort of thing. I think it's taking heavy inspiration from Vampire the Masquerade. Set hundreds of years ago in the past, you are a lady vampire doing stuff like making choices, upgrading your stats to make even more choices, something like that. Dark Auction is a game that is a while off, coming in January next year. There's no Western physical that's been officially announced as of yet, but it's definitely getting a Japanese physical release, and this looks like a good mystery adventure game, but the developer's previous releases have been decent but nothing overly special. However, the trailer, the PR blurb, this is hyping me up, it looks great. Detective Dotson is an adventure game set in India. You are a former Bollywood actor turned detective, and you take on cases to solve crime. They've added a bit of humor to it, taking part in Bollywood dances and stuff like that, and it could be a fun one if you want a light-hearted time. Dyschronia, Cronus Alternates, it was originally a VR game, but this console port took that aspect out, and what you're left with is a first-person detective adventure game. Could be a visual novel, it has that tag on Steam, but it seems to be a bit more, I don't know, adventurous than that, but let me know. Reviews are pretty positive, but it didn't get much traction, probably because of the VR stuff. Friends of Ringo Ishikawa and the Arrest of a Stone Buddha is a double pack. Ringo Ishikawa did get a physical release in North America via limited run games, but the second game, The Arrest of a Stone Buddha, is exclusive to this Japanese physical release. These are quite unique games. Think of something like the Kunio-kun beat-em-ups, but more violent, and have some like Shenmue-like life segments. It's kind of interesting stuff. Ghost Trick is remarkable in the fact that it did not get a Western physical release. I don't know what's wrong with Capcom, but this is a well-loved puzzle adventure game where you are a ghost who possesses different items to solve puzzles. I've never actually played it before, but I know I'll enjoy it if I did. Similar vibes to the Phoenix Wright games, and yeah, great on the original DS, I'm sure it's great on the Switch too. Here we go. Hokkaido Rensa Satsujin Ohotsuko ni Kiyu Tsujuku no Ryuhoyu Namida no Nipponpo Ningyo. Jesus. It's a long-winded name for a remake of a Famicom detective game. This is a command-based adventure game that one could call a visual novel, but that's definitely a bit of a stretch. Like, the scenario was one of Yuji Hoри's early works. It's pricey, definitely overly so, but it's an interesting detective mystery nonetheless. In Other Waters is an isolating experience. As the game's visuals are told through a radar system of sorts, you explore an alien planet for life. It's very minimalistic, lo-fi, and very intriguing if you've got the patience for a different kind of storytelling. Life is Strange True Colors did get a release in the West, but the Japanese edition is much better because aside from a small, non-mandatory patch, the game is fully on the cartridge. In the West, a download was required in order to actually play it. So if you want modern melodrama for a modern audience, then take a look at the Japanese edition, not the Western one. Melon Journey is not a coming-of-age tale for a young man, it's more like a Saturday morning cartoon adventure with a Game Boy visual style. It's a cute little Scooby-Doo sort of thing that lasts a few hours, nothing to get overly excited about, but if you find it cheap, why not? It's adorable. Neocab is an interesting adventure game where you are a cab driver in a brand new city and you are the only human driver there, and you are here to look out for your sister who's lost or something like that. You chat with your passengers and gather information from them. Ooh is a game I love just for the name alone. It's fun to say and is completely unsearchable. Good luck finding this game. Luckily, my document has it listed as to where you can actually find it without searching for yourself. Yes. Ooh. Paradise Killer is a snazzy adventure detective game that's almost too cool for me to play. I can imagine the developers not letting me buy it because I'm just not cool enough for them. But this is an open world detective game where there is a murder and you accuse whoever you want to of doing it, but you gotta back it up with evidence first. Passepartout 2, The Lost Artist, is a game that's a perfect, change of pace. This is where you paint various types of things for people in the seaside town that you've moved to. Flags, banners, advertisements. You earn money to get better equipment and visit more of the town. It is very nice and very chill. Phoenix Wright Trilogy is an essential import in my opinion, at least if you don't own it anywhere else already. 3 classic detective adventure games that are the best in the business in my opinion. I know some people prefer the later games more and that's fine, but there's something about these stories, these characters, the writing here that makes it extra legendary for me. I'm surprised the physical release was only in Japan. Prism Princess and Prism Princess Trapped Allure Collection is an alluring double pack of escape room puzzle sort of adventure games, very risque and boner bait if you're looking to get some very clear as day panty shots and are interested in the digits of a camel's foot. What I'm trying to say is that it is a pervert's dream. Recollite is a sleepy little adventure game where you are in a town that's perpetually nighttime and you want to help the people who live there. You want to help them out, but they don't really want your help. But being the insufferable nosy git that you are, you just do it anyways. Sherlock Holmes, The Awakened remake, is an extremely obscure import exclusive for the fact that the physical release was only in South Korea. And it does have English. You think Sherlock would be an easy sell around the world, and this isn't a bad game by any means, so it's strange to see it limited to Korea of all places. Staffer Case, a supernatural mystery adventure. Again, this is another Phoenix Wright inspired game, and it's a really good one supposedly. 5 cases where you gather evidence, arrange them in order, point out contradictions, and solve the case. Hopefully, very good reviews all around. Universe for Sale is a sci-fi adventure game that has some surreal elements to it, quite mellow in its approach to storytelling. It's in no rush to tell you the story, but that adds to the unique atmosphere that it has. It has some minigames spliced into the wonderful art style. Unreal Life is a very well-loved adventure game, and as an amnesiac girl whose only memory is their name, you have to reawaken her memories to find out what's going on. There is a melancholy vibe to the whole thing and surreal elements that offer a modern comparison to maybe Alice in Wonderland. Urban Myth Dissolution Center is perhaps a visual novel at heart, since the adventuring, the walking around stuff and investigation segments are short and simple, but whatever. It classes itself as an adventure game, a nicely received game if you want something horror based around the paranormal. Headliner Novi News has you controlling the narrative. You are the news and you tell people what you want to tell them when it comes to the spin or angle that you want to give it. It's an interesting take on, how many news outlets are and really have always been. I just think we're more aware of it now. Wanderer, Frankenstein's Creature is a retelling of a famous story. It came out really well, and many say it's one of the best representations of Mary Shelley's work. The art style is very eye-catching. Don't expect many gameplay thrills, but it is an interesting time if you're in the mood for it, and if you can't be asked to read the actual book because you're a lazy git. Maid Cafe at Electric Street is a story-focused adventure game that only recently just got announced for a physical release in Japan. It's coming in February next year, so plenty of time to go, but the reception for the digital release has been very positive. It may err on the side of visual novel due to the sheer lack of doing much, and there's not enough simulation aspect to put it in that section either, but if you want a leisurely time managing a cafe in the loosest possible sense, then you'll probably enjoy this. Action. Action games are games with action. Primarily action. Guns, explosions, swords are at the heart of the thrills per second gameplay. Akupara Action Pack is the best way to start off this section, because if it's not in this section, then it should be sued for false advertising. This pack of action games from Akupara contains 3 games: Spinch, Chicken Assassin Reloaded, and Desert Child, the former of which did get a Western physical release, but the other 2 did not. Ancient Weapon Holly looks like a game I'd probably really like just from the trailer and description, but reviews for it aren't super positive, with most places saying it's generic and lacking in a unique selling point. Well, I don't need gimmicks in my dungeon crawling, so maybe I would like it more? Who knows? Apex Heroines is a simple but satisfying action game. There is an arcade-like feeling to it as you try to rack up combos in this 3D hack and slash. Pretty easygoing and an easy game to shut your brain off to if you just want to melt onto the sofa, slob out, and watch some cute anime girls kick ass. Blaster Master Trilogy mixes the action with different genres a little bit. I could have put this in a platformer, but there's a bit more to it than that. There are top-down sections, for example, as well. The 3 games included here were done individually in North America via limited run, run, but this Asian and Japanese physical release is much better. It's cheaper, saves on shelf space, and the versions here are better than the original ones. They have small enhancements. Cube Creator X is an odd release. Only the Korean release has English on the cartridge. Other versions do not. It is a bit of an action game mixed with like a Minecraft thing going on, so maybe I could have put it in simulation or survival, but I am not the expert. Definitely one of the more obscure imports of all time, due to English being exclusive to the Korean version. Death Road to Canada was a Play Asia exclusive release, and this is a twin-stick action roguelike game as you try to avoid the zombie apocalypse by crossing the border to Canada. Maybe the free healthcare has more accessible anti-zombie injections or something like that. Anyway, you never know who's gonna join you in your run for the border, and you don't know who's gonna die either. Doom Sweeper is a tower defense sort of game with lots of action, like you are doing most of the heavy lifting here. A very addictive game despite its simplicity. The digital release was banned in North America and Europe, but this physical release in English was released in Singapore. EDF World Brothers 1 and 2. It feels sad to say that these are both import exclusives, but they are. The Japanese editions do not have English, but the other versions in Asia do, and I think they are a lot of fun. Okay, it's not like the true EDF experience, but I genuinely like them a lot. Finding all the brothers and sisters with the gameplay style and special abilities, it's really fun and I do highly recommend them. Forward to the Sky is a fun action puzzle game. It's basically like one big Zelda dungeon style game, but made by one bloke in an afternoon. And it's super short. I like it, but it's definitely not worth the price they initially asked for, and due to the print number, it's still overpriced now. I mean, just look on eBay. Way too much. Freedom Wars Remastered. It's unbelievable. This is an import exclusive. I know it's Bandai, so there's always a risk, but this is a game that Western audiences would definitely enjoy. And it's a great game. If you like action games with a tinge of Monster Hunter about them, but more futuristic, then definitely look into this. Gunya Monster is an online shooter that can be comparable to Splatoon. In fact, I think that's what they were going for. I don't know if there's any single player content, but the physical release has been found for dirt cheap these days. Gorzed is an action game. Even though it looks super simple, it's like an arcade style action game as you zoom around a track and blast your competitor. Simple but good, and it somehow has a narrative, and it's one of the weirdest surreal art styles that I've ever seen in quite a while. Gungrave Gore seems like it should be an awesome game. Full-blooded action with a decent-looking budget behind it. But when it released, I almost saw no one talking about it. This edition on Switch is supposedly the ultimate enhanced edition, which means it has some tweaks to enhance its original release that was on bigger consoles. Hong Kong Massacre is a popular indie action game, often compared to Hotline Miami, but inspired by Hong Kong cinema, which, let's face it, is the best cinema ever made. Like, stick Jackie Chan in any movie, and it's instantly 1,000 times better. Girls und Panzer Dream Tank Match DX is an unusual game. Should it be in the simulation category for tank simulation? Not when there are cute anime girls driving them. I believe this is based off an anime that I should really look up. And if you want the English version of this, you'll have to get the Southeast Asian version. That is the only one that has it. Iki Unite is a sequel to a game that was considered legendarily bad in the Famicom era. They brought it back and tried to make it good by copying Vampire Survivors. There's even a large multiplayer aspect to this one. I haven't heard if it's good or not though. Knights vs Giants, The Broken Excalibur, had a very quiet import release back when there were like loads of imports at one time, and this certainly got left behind in terms of visibility. It's an action roguelike within King Arthur's mythos. Pretty decent from reviews. Maid of the Dead is a very popular import exclusive, released in Southeast Asia. It's another simple game, but there's enough bazookas to keep a man happy. Oh, and there are explosives in here too, which also helps. You go on a zombie killing rampage, you get some saucy CG pictures as a nice pat on the head for doing well. Metal Dogs does not have English on the cartridge, but a while after release, there was an English patch for it. This is a twin-stick shooter that's connected to the Metal Max universe, but obviously plays very differently. Expect something a bit ridiculous rather than overly compelling. Metallic Child is one of my favorite imports, especially if I had to give a list of underrated imports. This is a really sweet action roguelike, and yes, that's coming from me who doesn't really care much for that genre, but this works. It's just Japanese enough. It has a Mega Man-like progression to it as you inherit the boss's abilities, and you can take on the dungeons as such in any order you want. It's very underrated. Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Battle Destiny Remastered is a port of a PlayStation Vita game, finally in English for the first time. A fun action game, but I can see why it didn't get an English release until now, and why this physical remained in the East. It's a little bit ropey, but Gundam fans will definitely enjoy it. What I played of it, I did enjoy it too. Ninja Gaiden Trilogy is an essential import exclusive release. You get 3 fantastic action games in one package. This release is in the top 10 imports of all time for a good reason. How can you say no to such good value for money? Yeah, they are extremely hard, but also extremely satisfying games, and they are more welcome now in the modern era where they fit in even more. Plus, Ninja Gaiden 4 is out like around about now, so there's no better time to pick it up. Ninjala is an online-only game where it did get a physical release on Switch in Japan. It's strange because I'm pretty sure the cartridge will be unplayable without an update and internet connection, but whatever, it is a cartridge if you want them all. Noctuary was a difficult one to categorize since it's incredibly heavy on the visual novel storytelling aspect. It is technically a visual novel, but honestly there's enough top-down action and RPGing stuff to make it stand out for one that even just action game fans will enjoy. The story, the characters and world building are really interesting though, so give it a shot. Definitely worth a play. Panty Party got 2 physical releases on the Switch. That's just how legendary it is. I'm mostly joking, but at first, this arena combat game was a Play Asia exclusive, but later on, got a Japanese physical release with a complete on-cart version. It is harmless fun, like sentient panties shooting at each other. Pocky and Rocky Reshined did get a Western physical release at retail, but I often mention it in these import videos because the Japanese release is not censored like the Western one is. It's nothing major, but the art style was altered for the Western release to show less boobage, and this game is fantastic either way. One of the best top-down run and guns I've ever played. It looks beautiful and plays really nicely too. Samurai Maiden is a schlocky action game, a game that would have been released like as a budget title on the PS2 or something like that, but only in Europe. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It's a fun game, simple but entertaining. Sadly, the publisher D3 now think their games are worth the price of gold these days, so this is not a budget title. It's quite expensive, and was quite rare at one point. Scourgebringer is a Play Asia exclusive release that's pretty good if you like games like Celeste, but with a bit more focus on combat as you zip around. It's fast-paced and actually a roguelike, so lots of room for replayability. Just prepare for a nice challenge. SD Gundam Battle Alliance is Bandai up to their antics again of not releasing their Gundam games in the West physically, and I think this is the greatest offender of them all, since it's a pretty decently budgeted game. It's fun, lots of content, and Western fans would have lapped it up too. There's no way this wouldn't have got a Western physical release like 10, 15 years ago, but for some reason Bandai didn't have much faith in it. Definitely a better import than Gundam Seed, and if you're not a Gundam fan, you'll still enjoy the hack and slash action here. Smashing the Battle often makes you wish you were smashing something else with an over-exaggerated art style. This is a fun action game made by the same person as Metallic Child. This one is a bit more brainless, but still fun, and this was a Play Asia exclusive. Sadly, it's out of stock now. Splatoon 3 plus Expansion Pass is an interesting release in Japan because the Expansion Pass is on the cartridge. North America just didn't get this at all, and in Europe the Expansion Pass is a voucher. Now, Aussie friends, yes, you did get the same as the Japanese release on the cartridge too, but it's worth mentioning. And also worth mentioning that while the DLC is on the cartridge, it's not like a complete on-cart version because, you know, of the online play, there's often patches, and even regularly today, I think it got a patch last week or something like that. There are still updates that need to be downloaded. Space Marshal Collection is a mix of stealth and action. This is also a triple pack as Space Marshals take down the Outlaws. There's lots of content in this package even though they do originate from mobile games. I don't know if they're good or not though. Synaptic Drive is one for those who miss Custom Robo. It's basically the same premise, small arenas, isometric action, lots of customization in loadouts. It wasn't exactly popular. In fact, it got mostly negative reviews on Steam. You're better off waiting for Custom Robo on Nintendo Switch Online. Taboo Trial is a bit like Apex Heroines, however this one ain't playing around with the fan service. The cover art tells you that alone. It's a 3D action roguelike starring a Valkyrie that sold very well on Steam, but has no mainstream reviews for reasons I can't fathom. The physical release was only in Southeast Asia. Thunder Ray was a Play Asia exclusive release that's going for a Punch-Out style gameplay. Certainly not as iconic, and I think other indie Punch-Outs have done it better, one that I'll mention a bit later on, but I think it looks cool and stylish, and the limited edition is still in stock at the time of me making this video. Wing of Darkness is a costly aerial combat game where the biggest flaw is, well, what I just said. It's very expensive for the experience you actually get. It's really quite short, only a handful of missions, and padded with some barely interesting story segments in between. If you can find it dirt cheap, then sure, but as fun as the combat is, it just didn't last long enough. Action Adventure. What is the difference between action and action adventure? Well, feeling, that is what. Does it feel like it has more adventuring, exploring and stuff? Maybe, maybe not, but this is what I've categorized as action adventure. Live with it. Or comment below, that will help too. Amedama is a really interesting game. It's a soul-shifting, character-swapping adventure game in feudal Japan as you try to rescue your sister. You are dead, but your soul lives on and can transfer to still alive people and animals in order to get you where you need to be. I love the visuals here too, love everything about the presentation. The gameplay itself is nothing remarkable, but it's elevated by my nostalgia for the PS1. Sorry. Bang on Balls Chronicles is almost worth it for the name alone. I mean, if you banged your balls, you'd certainly want to write it down for future generations to know about it. However, it's also worth it for the really solid gameplay. I haven't heard about how the Switch port is, but the game is a nice bit of, well put together adventuring. Blue Fire is a cool 3D indie game that does have a Western retail release, so why am I including it in this video? Well, because the later Japanese release actually includes the DLC on the cartridge, and it's pretty significant too. It's complete on cartridge with a perfect release, definitely worth getting over the Western one. Devil May Cry Trilogy should be an easy win, but sadly, only the first game is on the cartridge, and the other two are download codes, which have now expired, so do not buy this for more than 10 bucks or something. And I say that with a straight face, as the prices on eBay are like 100 bucks or something like that. Do not pay that price, okay, just for Devil May Cry 1. Jesus. Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, is one of the best imports in my opinion. I think it is a fantastic game that I am shocked didn't get a Western physical release. It's a high quality action RPG that tries so many things and succeeds to present a fantastic adventure that lives up to Level 5's reputation. Incredible and essential. There's also a Nintendo Switch 2 edition physical release as well, which is also an import exclusive. Infinity Strash and the long-ass subtitle is a game that was not well loved, considered a bit of a misadventure for the Dragon Quest franchise, probably because the marketing led people to believe it was going to be something that it's not. It is not a spectacular game for sure, but I don't feel it deserves the absolute hate when you get down to what the game actually is, rather than what the marketing led you to believe it was. It's a fun enough action game with good production. Eternal Radiance mixes visual novel storytelling with simple action RPG combat as you travel between locations. Definitely built by people who know more about visual novel development rather than action RPGing, but it's a fun, spunky game that I don't mind if you don't mind getting over the insane controller setup. Someone never picked up a controller in their life when they added the controller support for this. Thankfully, I think you can change it from what I remember. It'll Do. While its sequel did get a physical retail release in North America, the original game did not, and it was left to One Print Games in Singapore to do it. A fun little Zelda wannabe with a modern cartoon style. Does a lot of nice things, and was one of the earlier indie Zelda wannabes that actually made it into like a good, solid product. Kamen Rider Memory of Heroes. You're gonna want the Southeast Asian version of this if you want to play in English. It's an actual ambitious game for the franchise that's often left with just, arena fighters and pretty much nothing with a budget. However, this game is surprisingly good with its production value. Kamen Rider fans and non-fans can still have a decent amount of fun with this action game. I enjoyed it, and I know nothing about Kamen Rider. Kamiko was one of the earlier indie hits on the Nintendo Switch and eventually got a physical release in Japan via B-Side Games, which no longer exist. Probably wasn't worth the original price plus shipping due to its short nature, but those who picked it up for 15 bucks during the company's liquidation should be very happy now considering the prices for this on eBay. You're gonna be minted. Kwaidan is a Play Asia exclusive release, and this is my kind of game. Is it great? No, but it looks and plays like a long-lost PlayStation 2 game, which is what I am all about. It has an interesting control scheme for a console, and something tells me only PC was in mind when the developers first made the game, but if you like schlocky jank, then this will be a good one to pick up. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild plus expansion pass, yes, an import exclusive Legend of Zelda game. What is going on here? What's special about this? Well, the Japanese release of this with the expansion pass has the DLC on the cartridge. Like, it's a full, complete edition of Legend of Zelda. It's quite expensive, like you really are paying for that extra content DLC, but still, for future preservation, if you want the best version of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, that's not the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, then you want to get this one for sure. Moonlighter does have a Western physical release, however, you are much better off buying the Japanese edition because it actually has the DLC on the cartridge. So while not essential, it's definitely better, and it's not really that expensive either. A fun little dungeon crawler where you also take care of a shop during the day, a classic moonlighting style of gameplay. No More Heroes 1 and 2 is a great little double pack of games that Limited Run did individually in North America, but this double pack is far more affordable and accessible. Well, supposedly, it's out of print at the minute and quite expensive on eBay, but maybe there will be a reprint in the future. That would be nice. And in this package, you get 2 really fun, kind of schlocky action games, like C-tier action games, but still really enjoyable. And they try to punch above their weight, so yeah, really nice, interesting release. No Place for Bravery, to me at the time of playing, felt like every indie action game ever made. It felt a bit generic by the time it came out, but aside from some technical issues, it's a well-meaning, nicely produced indie game that Hyperlight Drifter fans will probably enjoy too. Ogu and the Secret Forest is a lovely, bright, colorful adventure game starring an albino platypus with a fishing or bug-catching net. It's a bit like a Zelda game, but with a platypus, and therefore is better. Lots of puzzles to enjoy, and this should be an easy recommendation. Okami is an all-time classic that feels like it's an insult that it didn't get a Western physical release, but that is Capcom for you. I don't think anyone's actually ever completed this game. Like, everyone absolutely loves Okami and consider it to be better than most 3D Zeldas, but like 60% of the way through, they kind of get distracted by something else. Tell me I'm wrong about that. If you don't own it already, you should import it. It's really cheap. You can find it for like 20 bucks now. Get it. Onimusha is a Capcom game people actually did finish because it's a lot shorter than you remember when you played it back in the day on your PlayStation 2, but it's a fantastic action, horror, adventure game that was a bit like Resident Evil, but with samurai. Not quite as horror focused, but it has its moments. It's a fun game for sure, and well worth a revisit if you can find the physical cheap enough. Pato Box is one of my favorite Play Asia exclusive releases. It's basically Punch-Out, but with an adventure mode as you walk around places. Have a few simple puzzles to solve. Good stuff. Sadly, this is one of the few Play Asia exclusives that has not received a reprint. Come on, reprint it. Reverie Sweet As Edition is another Play Asia exclusive release that tries to be a little bit dinky as a top-down Zelda game. Maybe more like a modern Star Tropics, maybe that would be a better example, but it's a nice game that's still readily accessible thanks to having a reprint. RPG Time, The Legend of Wright, reminds me of something similar to, the Plucky Squire, remember that? A nicely presented game that mixes with some genre mashups that together come to something resembling an action-adventure game. Gameplay can feel a bit easy and a bit too hand-holdy for the player, but if you like D&D from the imagination of a kid, it might be a fun one to try out. Set Up a Culinary Adventure is a co-op action game with split screen, where you go out to find ingredients to cause up a cooking storm in the kitchen. For whatever reason, the PC release got a lot of poor reviews. Maybe it's a bit too difficult and chaotic for some who are expecting a slow-paced cozy game. It's not slow-paced or cozy, okay? Think of it more like Overcooked. It's stress central. Super Game Magic Zero has a cute visual style. It's a local co-op action game with some nice chaotic battles with sheer absurdity. Honestly, I don't know if this should be an action game or an action RPG, but reviews for it are good, even though it's an odd game that's very hard for me to describe. Touhou New World might be the best Touhou game I've played. I've not played them all, of course, but this feels like the one with the most effort put into it. This is not universally loved, it got kind of like mixed reviews all around, but I enjoyed it. Top-down combat with some bullet hell patterns, it's a decent time. Trigger Witch is what you get if you mix The Legend of Zelda with a bloody twin-stick shooter. It's pretty good all things considered, a decent slice of adventuring into dungeons on an overworld, getting upgrades, your classic Zelda stuff. You just happen to be a witch with an arsenal of munitions at your disposal. This was a Play Asia exclusive release. Xuan Sword 7 is a big budget action adventure game. There's something kind of Souls-like about it, but in the long-running and much-loved Xuan Sword series, a series that has many fans in Asian regions. It's less familiar to us in the West, but in parts of China, this has the same reverence as Final Fantasy. Obviously, it's not quite as big budget, but still runs okay on the Switch, and the physical release was exclusive to PlayAsia. Shmups. They don't need a big introduction, there are loads of them on the Switch, and while many of them did feel big enough to get a limited Western release via Limited Run and Strictly Limited that I'll talk about later in the video, there are also loads that are still only available in Japan, such as Aleste is a collection of shooters, not the Aleste games you may be more familiar with, but the Game Gear editions, which are much better than you'd think. It also contains a brand new game in the series made by M2 themselves, which is supposed to be awesome. There is no English on this package, but of course it's not essential. Bounty Sisters is an upcoming shooter where English is currently unknown, and in fact I would say maybe unlikely due to the developer's recent game history, but it may not be necessary since it is a shmup. I don't know much about it at the minute, but I do like the artwork. It doesn't look cheap like most modern shmups do. Bullet Soul Double Pack is a double pack of 2 shooters that were in arcades and I think the Xbox 360, weirdly, back when Xbox were trying to desperately cater to Japanese tastes. These are certainly not from the golden era of shmups, but still nicely made and only come in a collector's edition. Caladrius Blaze is an accessible shooter, one of the first imports around, and for a reasonable price unlike most of the genre. This has you getting shot and losing clothes, but I'm sure the gameplay is decent as well. It's not just for the tease. Cosmo Dreamer Collection was a PlayAsia exclusive release and contains 2 shooters with painfully bad artwork. It definitely errs on the embarrassing side of things, especially when you consider the games are actually really good. They're made by someone who knows what makes them tick, and PlayAsia still have this one in stock. Cotton 16-bit Tribute. This was kinda done by Strictly Limited Games in Europe, however, they released the 2 games included in this package individually, whereas this is a nice, and I wouldn't say affordable, but it's an accessible package. It contains Panorama Cotton and Cotton 100%, 2 16-bit curiosities from Cotton. One was a Super Nintendo or Super Famicom game, and one was a Mega Drive game. Cotton Reboot High Tension is a game that doesn't have English in its story segments, but the menus are in English. It's another entry in the franchise and a reworking of the recent remake with a big focus on attacking your senses. At least that's what I get from the trailer. Dimension Drive was an early PlayAsia exclusive release. I'll be honest, I don't like this one. You have to keep an eye out on 2 planes of existence at once and then flip between them. Nice concept, made me feel nauseous. I'm sure some of you have stronger stomachs than myself though. DoDonPachi Blissful Death is a prime time shooter on the Nintendo Switch. I often forget which DoDonPachi game is which, but I do know that this is the one that is an import exclusive. There was another game in the series that did get a physical release in the West, but not this one. And this was handled by M2, so it has a price to match that name. ESP Radatai is a game that many consider to be the pinnacle cave shooter and one of the best shmups to import if you have a Switch. A really nice, unique setting, badass gameplay. The only hurdle was the price, which has come down a little since launch. It's still not cheap though, like $50 for one shooter, only for the most hardcore of fans. Ghostblade HD is a PlayAsia exclusive release. Despite being in stock since launch, it's now out of print, although maybe they'll reprint it again, who knows. This is a very competent modern bullet hell shooter. The art style may not be to everyone's taste, but this started life as a Dreamcast game, which makes it cool. Heisho Same 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 is a retro collection of flying shark, fire shark, any kind of weird shark you've ever wanted. This has it. These are super retro, so you're getting like NES versions of the series, which is pretty cool, and it's a nice package to have. Seems pretty comprehensive too. Illmatic Envelope Swamp and Redurgi Swag is a double pack of shmups that don't have English. But as you'll find out with this company, maybe on this occasion it might be slightly more important because they tend to have a lot of text, whether ramblings of the characters or actual instructions. These two you want to have Google Translate on standby with your phone. It's weird, and even more weird, but lots of content and lots of fun. Il Velo Swamp Happy Together is from the same developer, and the same kind of weird stuff, same kind of, man, it would be nice to have English on these. Sadly, it doesn't. But you can fumble your way around to enjoy another shooter that's certainly outside of the norm. Karus was the final official Dreamcast game ever released, which instantly makes this game awesome. It's making a comeback in late November. probably no English, but it's still not certain, and I'm definitely excited to play it for the first time. Kyogeki Quartet Fighters does not have English, but it's not essential. This has become quite a rare release on the Switch after its Japanese boutique publisher, B-Side Games, went defunct. The asking price is hundreds of dollars or so now, and there's me remembering when they were on clearance for 15 bucks. It's an NES-style shooter with a focus on multiplayer. Never Awake is a fun twin-stick style shmup that has you going through a lot of levels and a lot of grotesque environments and bosses, even wrapped up in a story. It's a really great package, especially if you need something more than just score chasing. I do recommend this one. Power Rumi was a Play Asia exclusive release that took big inspiration from Ikaruga, but this doesn't have just the polarity mechanic. It has a 3-color system, a I don't even know what to call it. It really messes with your mind. It has a unique setting as well, in a future Aztec thing going on. Seems pretty cool. Redurgi 2 is another one of those shmups that's all kind of weird and where English would actually be nice. In fact, it appears this is a double pack. It includes Redurgi 1 and 2 together. How did I not notice that before making this video? So that's like 3 Redurgi games on the Switch. Nice. RXN Raijin was a Play Asia exclusive release, one of their very early ones, and since the game has been delisted from the entire internet and planet, the only way to get it now is physically, which means this commands a high price and it probably deserves. Yeah, it's not worth the $200. Shield Maid MX is an upcoming shmup from Play Asia as an exclusive of theirs, a pretty low-key release, one of the more recent ones, and this is one of those grazers that has you powering up the closer you are to danger. Reviews are decent, but there's not a lot of hype about it. Shikondo Soul Eater and Shikondo Yokai Rampage are 2 separate releases. The first was a Play Asia exclusive, but later, after the rights went to a different publisher, a Japanese retail release came called the Yokai Rampage, which added an extra character alongside some smaller gameplay tweaks. Visually very appealing, and the gameplay is supposedly alright, if nothing exceptional. Skyrocket is an interesting mix of shmup and breakout, which means it's a bit gimmicky and probably not conducive to most like hardcore shmup fans, but this is bright, it's colourful and unique with the story, so if you need to add some variety to your shooter collection, this Asian exclusive could be a fun one to look into. Soldner X Complete Collection is another Play Asia exclusive, one that's taking a surprising amount of time to materialize. It's been up for pre-order a weirdly long time for East Asia Soft, but last I checked, the ball is rolling. The first game is now out digitally and the second game is coming soon, so hopefully this physical release will be out early next year. Telenet Shooting Collection 2 is included in this part, since although Limited Run did the first collection, they have made no mention of this second collection. This has Kyodan, Final Zone 2, Browning, and Legion. The collection does not have English, so it may be worth waiting to see if Limited Run do it at some point. Zero Fire is a collection of Zero Wing and Hellfire, various versions of them. This one contains the second biggest gaming meme ever. What do you think I would consider number 1? Anyways, this is actually including some other games too, but I'm not 100% sure if they need to be downloaded or not. The information from different sources is contradictory, so yeah, I probably need to buy it myself to find out for sure. Horror! Ever since I watched my dad playing Resident Evil Director's Cut on the PlayStation 1, I've been equally terrified and enamored with horror games. And so is Japan, it seems, because there are a surprising amount of import exclusives. Ao Oni is a cheap-looking game, but it's a bit of a cult classic. I guess looks can be deceiving. Being chased by a blueberry monster or something, I don't know, it looks dumb for sure, but this 2008 freeware game was remade for the Switch and actually contains 2 games now, for some reason. Apslov End of Gods is a pretty cool looking horror game. It has Scandinavian themes to it, which is unusual for the genre. It's also a bit sci-fi as well, so something pretty unique. There are no puzzles, but there's some basic combat in here to stop it being labelled as a true walking sim. Strange this never got a Western physical release. I thought, Westerners would lap this up. Aquarium wa Odoranai, also known as The Aquarium Does Not Dance, is an RPG Maker-style horror game. It is a remake of a freeware game as you search for your missing friend in an aquarium that's changed into a horror world. Supposed to be pretty good despite its looks. Blair Witch is a pretty big release in terms of horror games from Bloober Team, a big company in the horror world. This only released physically in Japan and only in a collector's edition. Really weird. I don't know if this game is super well regarded, but it's one of the bigger budget import exclusives out there. Bridge Curse, The Road to Salvation, or is it The Bridge Curse Road to Salvation, I don't know, is a Play Asia exclusive release. Unlike the second game in the series, this original entry is only available in Asia. It's currently out of print as well, which is a shame because it's a really nice game all things considered. Good setting, good characters, nice presentation. Daymare 1994 Sandcastle is a bit of a tease since a European physical release occasionally gets a placeholder listing before disappearing again. It's happened like 3 times now, but whatever, it's out in Japan, and this is a case of a game looking better than it actually is. It looks like a AAA Resident Evil title or something, but far from it. Dead by Daylight. Whew, while the West got the base Dead by Daylight game physically, Japan has been swimming in the expansions. These contain various franchise tie-ins from Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and even Ringu. Probably not worth importing since I believe an online account is necessary as the game is online only as far as I know. Distraint Collection is a Play Asia exclusive release containing 2 surreal side-scrolling horror games. Pretty decent if a bit short and, out there. This was one of their earlier titles, however, and is still in stock to this day. There is also a spiritual sequel out there too, but that was released in Europe called After Dream. Dreadout Remastered Collection is a double pack of the first Dreadout as well as a spin-off title called Keepers of the Dark. I have played Dreadout 2 and I rather liked it, so I'm sure I'll get this double pack one day. The series tends to be a bit more like Fatal Frame, however, more modernized as you take photos of ghosts with your mobile. The Enigma Machine and Alterity Experience is a pretty meager experience, 2 kind of short walking sims in one package. Having a VHS filter over your game doesn't make it scary. Cool, for sure, but scary? Nah. Reviews for both are very thin on the ground and, there's probably a reason for that. The Exit 8 and Platform 8 double pack is another really short experience, but at least the price matches it. 2 games in one, a Spot the Anomaly sort of thing, which has become popular in recent years because, well, asset-wise, they're very cheap to make, but at least this is considered to be the best of that type of game. Creepy, but not outwardly terrifying. Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater is the latest brand new game in the franchise, and the physical release was only in Japan and Asia. Sadly, if you want English, you need to download an update. It's not on the cartridge. However, it is better than, a purely digital release, and the game is fantastic. For me, this is the best horror series on the Switch. Very creepy vibes. Fatal Frame Mask of the Lunar Eclipse is a remaster of the previous game, but this came out after Blackwater on Switch. In terms of English, you're going to want to import the Southeast Asian version specifically because that's the one that has English. And for me, this is also an essential import. The best import for the genre, okay? You can quote me on that. Get Me Out Please is a weird game that I don't fully comprehend. I think it has online play, but it's also solo and plays more like an arcade game rather than pure horror. It's rough around the edges and feels a good few generations behind, with comments saying it's something you'd have seen on the Dreamcast, in terms of look and gameplay, which is probably the best compliment in history. The game is out of print, a bit rare and expensive now. Hollow Cocoon is a cheap import exclusive coming later this year. It's a first-person horror set in 80s Japan, where you enter a village deep in the mountains, always the creepiest of places in Japan. The game has good reviews on Steam, so hopefully it makes a nice transition to the Switch. Ib is another RPG Maker style horror game, and I rather like this one. Once again, don't judge a game by the visuals alone, since it has an interesting story, fun puzzles, and some surreal horror visuals as you explore a creepy, otherworldly art gallery in search for your missing parents. Livestream, Escape from Hotel Izanami, and Livestream 2 were 2 games that had separate physical releases, and they were very popular imports at the time. However, rather recently, there was also a double pack of both games together in one. Definitely the best way to get it these days. These are adventure horror games that focus, without shame, on the lewdness. Plenty of girls in uncomfortable positions and plenty of panty shots to go along with them. Red Colony Trilogy is very similar in that regard, but far more schlocky. It feels like an exploitation movie from the 70s, and that means it's pretty fun. Funny in its gall, but the gameplay is also solid too. You wouldn't want to play it in front of people, but you can still have fun with it. The physical release was only available at Play Asia. Remothered Double Pack is an inessential physical release since both games did get a Western physical release individually. However, this may be a better pickup if you're conscious of shelf space, and while not complete on cart, it does have slightly more up-to-date versions of the games on this cartridge. Sense was a Play Asia exclusive and a game that I rather like. It's a mix of vibes, horror, cyberpunk, heavy-chested ladies, you know, the classics. This is more of an adventure game than survival horror, like you'll use items to solve puzzles, and it's alright, if a bit by the books. Sense's Midnight is the sequel, and also a Play Asia exclusive, but it's very different type of gameplay since it's 3D now and takes part in a small-ish open world, where you have to feel your way around and try to survive. Interesting, a bit basic, but I do have a soft spot for it. Sentimental Deathloop is a survival horror adventure game with some nice pixel graphics. You can tell it was made by the same team as Livestream, as well as the Prison Princess games. How? All of the panty shots. They can't get enough. Of their games, this is considered the weakest, despite the interesting premise of finding out why your friend suddenly stabbed you to death. Shadow Corridor 2 is actually a double pack since it contains both games in the series, despite the title of the physical only mentioning the sequel. These are supposedly pretty decent games, especially the sequel, which is more of a fulfilling game, a bit of stealth, a bit of roguelike somehow. Then the more I read about it, the more I think it's going to be a great game. And by the way, it's also releasing in Asian regions too in the near future, and that is more correct with its naming because it's called Shadow Corridor Collection or something like that. Yuoni is a bit of a throwaway horror game. The import was a very cheap price and the runtime is rather short. It is a game of cat and mouse as you are being chased. Find items to use, places to hide, and hold your breath when the enemy is near. This one does not have good reviews. Corpse Party Tetralogy Pack was an import exclusive, then it wasn't an import exclusive, but now it's an import exclusive once again. At least maybe for the time being, who knows, because the planned North American physical release has been put on hold for reasons unknown and is in danger of not happening at all. But not to worry, because this Japanese release is a fantastic option to get 4 Corpse Party games in one package. If you need some good horror games with a large focus on the characters and the story, then these should be on your list. Incantation is Play Asia and East Asia Soft's latest pre-order exclusive at the time of me making this video. In fact, I held off showing this video because I knew this was coming and I thought I might as well include it. It's another first-person horror game from the same developers as The Bridge Curse, and I believe this is also based off a horror movie or something, and I'd expect the same amount of pretty decent quality. Fighting games, a genre I mostly don't like, but if the characters are good, if they have some interesting lore and effort put into the endings, I can get behind them from time to time. Japan is obviously big on fighting games, but there aren't too many exclusives. Blade Arcus Rebellion from Shining is one that does not have English. It was quite an early import exclusive, and I think if it was released today, SaGa probably would have bothered with some kind of English translation. But despite there being a healthy amount of story between fights, if you just want to fight, it's fine to import. Chaos Code was a Play Asia exclusive that has a lot of characters, lots of modes, and lots of customization. As you'd expect from Arc System Works as a publisher, it can be a very technical game with lots of gameplay features, and it looks gorgeous too. Fight of Animals and Fight of Animals Arena are 2 games part of the same series but play differently from one another. The first game is your standard fighter, while the second game, Arena, is more of a party brawler like Smash Bros, and they star animals, supposedly pretty competent. Fight of God is from the same developer, and it just gets weirder and more expensive because this is a bit rare these days. Here you have a fighting game starring various world deities. Yes, Jesus pile-driving Buddha. He wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I am just staggered by the price considering the game doesn't even have English. Not that it needs it, but still. Kamen Rider Climax Scramble is an arena fighter starring the Kamen Rider heroes. Only the Southeast Asian version of this game has English. Don't buy any of the others. It's way overpriced for the quality of the game, but I'm sure Kamen Rider fans may enjoy it. But it's not the best Kamen Rider game on the Switch, so yeah, up to you. Lethal League Blaze is a fighting game made by the same studio who went on to make Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, and you can just really tell with the style that's in this game. There's a bit of Windjammers influence here too, and it just looks great. I don't know if it plays great though. Melty Blood is another rare and expensive import exclusive. This one does have English, and the game pretty much sold out before anyone could have a chance to buy it. It's a fighting game filled with visual novel characters from majors, supposedly pretty competent, just good luck finding a physical copy for less than $100. Nickelodeon All Stars Brawl Ultimate Edition did get a Western retail release, but Not like in Japan, because in the West, the Ultimate Edition is just a voucher alongside the base game, whereas in Japan, it is actually on the cartridge, so you have all the DLC on the cartridge, which I think should classify as an import exclusive. Omen of Sorrow is a fighting game that was a Play Asia exclusive. Seems like a random game for them to do since it's a horror-themed fighting game, Frankenstein and all that. This is technically the definitive edition with more story content and gameplay tweaks. Override Mech City Brawl is a fighting game where the name pretty much gives it away, a game that would make any 10-year-old kid squeal with excitement. This one only released physically in Japan, however the sequel, which is considered to be the better of the two, did get a Western retail release, so maybe get that one instead. Persona 4 Arena Ultimax is a fighting game that does not have English, which most would say is not worth importing, and fine, it does have a lot of story to it, almost in a Persona 4 sequel kind of way, but most consider the story to be pretty awful, and skipped in favor of just playing the pretty sweet fighting game with the characters you love. River City Melee Mac is an arena fighter starring the Kunio-kun dudes, perhaps a bit comparable to the likes of Power Stone, but on a more modest scale. Could be a decent amount of chaotic fun, picking up weapons to use and such. Slap City should be an import exclusive release. It's been in production hell for a long time. One Print Games, who are always good on their word with their games, have run into a brick wall with this particular release that sadly they're not allowed to disclose. Hopefully this Smash-like fighter will be in your hands at some point too. They did recently just put out an update saying things are looking good, and hopefully, yes, they've got the ball rolling and it's going to be put into production. Touhou Sky Arena Matsuri Climax is an arena fighter with the Touhou fighters. There's one like this that's already on the Switch, released in the West pretty early on, but this one did not get the same treatment. Easy to see why with the low production value, but if you're into games like the Naruto Arena Fighters and you enjoy the Touhou characters, it could be a fun time. Simulation/management. Who doesn't love to tinker with your own creation? Whether building cities, robots, or managing restaurants, there is a wealth of quirky games out there for you to try. Japan and Asia are happy to provide their people with lots of quirky simulators physically that the West just isn't brave enough to do. A-Train All Aboard Tourism plus the expansion pack. These are two separate releases. There's the base game, and then later there came the same game plus its expansion, meaning that is the way to go if you own a Switch 1 and you want to get it. Or maybe not, because if you stay tuned to the Nintendo Switch 2 section of this video at the very end, there may be a better option if you like city building and train management things. Airport Hero. There are 3 Airport Hero games on the Nintendo Switch physically in Japan. Do not ask me what the difference is between them, because I don't know, and I frankly don't care. I believe they're pretty much the same thing, but with slight additions each time, and actual branded airlines and such. If you want to be sure, just get the latest one in the series, okay? The 20th Anniversary Edition. Arcade Paradise All-in-One Edition. The base game did get a physical release in the West, however I am led to believe, but I'm still not 100% sure, but I believe the Japanese edition also includes the DLC on this cartridge, which would definitely make it a better option. Besiege is a physics-based sandbox simulation game as you create mechanical machines to annihilate your enemies. Creativity and an eye for war crimes will get you far in this one. BQM, Block Quest Maker, is a creation tool for making your own dungeon crawling adventure games. Made by the same person, or people, I don't know, as Dungeon and Gravestone, this is a decent option for those who have been craving that Zelda maker that Nintendo refused to make. This could be a decent distraction. The Colonists is a town building thing, but with robots. You build a colony for your robot friends on a distant planet. They no doubt want to get away from you horrible humans. A nice relaxing time seeing the robots whizzing around, getting on with their business. Date with Devils. I don't really know what this game is. There's not even a trailer for the game, which is kind of unheard of. You are the Lord of Hell and you try to date devilish girls by building your relationships with them via many different activities, probably. Dead or Alive Extreme 3 Scarlet has you letting girls compete in bikini-based activities like butt bumping, rock climbing, and late-night photo taking in the bedroom. Manage your relationships with the girls, give them gifts, and hopefully, well, I don't know. I played this and I can't even remember the point of it. Take photos of the girls, I guess. That's it. Debut Project Cooking Cafe is a casual meal-making simulator, simple minigames to create your munchable masterpieces. There appears to be some cafe management going on as well, as you try to satisfy all your customer needs. Jungarian Story is available on a proper cartridge despite initially releasing as a code in a box in Japan. The cartridge came out later and included all the DLC that you'd ever need for your hamster raising needs. Ever After Falls feels like it should have got a Western physical release since it's a prime-time cozy life sim, and a pretty good one too, at least according to reviews. There is some action combat in here too that almost made me put it in the action adventure section, but then it felt, it's too cozy, and I had to put it in its rightful place. Football Manager Touch 2023, 2024, and the upcoming 2026 are 3 bespoke releases for the Nintendo Switch console. Hardly the chunky PC editions, but watered down for portable play. The physical releases were either only in Japan or Asia or both, and no, I didn't make a mistake, there is no 2025 edition because if you read the news, that game was cancelled and they skipped a year. 100 Year Kingdom is an obscure import exclusive, so much so it passed me by initially until someone brought it up, since it wasn't available on most of the usual import sites. It's a kingdom builder of sorts, but quite compact and dinky in its approach. It looks pretty nice. Hungry Meme is a game that reminds me of something like Pikmin mixed with Populous, something like that, and you have a bunch of weird creatures that you need to help build their civilization. Looks quite charming, if visually rough around the edges. Now VGP did do a North American edition of this game, but in super limited quantities, so importing is still a great option for the future. Idol Manager is a Fallout shelter, was made by Japanese developers. You build your idol empire by hiring and training and managing the idols that come in and out of it. Unique, charming, stupidly difficult not to go bankrupt, but hey, nothing in life is easy, especially managing idols. Japan Train Models Deluxe is a 4-in-1 package of smaller titles that has you building the train before you run it. Each game should have English according to the Japanese eShop, and it looks like one that train enthusiasts should enjoy. Japanese Rail Sim 3D Journey to Kyoto is a port of a 3DS game that has full motion video of you driving a train to Kyoto. There are plenty of games like this in Japan, however only 2 of them have English, this being the first one. I believe nowadays there's also a best priced edition roaming around to get it for even cheaper. Let's Train Golf Get Better with Putter is a super odd budgeted title that is aimed at trying to improve your skills as a golfer, specifically the putting aspect. I don't think this has you doing any long range efforts, but if you want something incredibly unique as a piece of software, maybe look into it. Little Devil Foster Mayhem is a simulation game? I don't know. It simulates being a little shit at home and destroying your house, so maybe. This one is a bit of an obscure one considering it only released physically in Singapore. Probably fun if you just want some chaos in your gaming life. Matchmaker Agency is a dating sim thing? Maybe, I'm not entirely sure since I haven't played it. Could be a VN mostly, could be simulation, who knows, just let me know. But the art style looks too awful for me to, personally find out. Megaquarium was an early import exclusive that's been out of print a long time. The price has gone up quite a bit now. It's an aquarium building simulator that looks pretty nice, but I'm biased because I love aquariums. Princess Maker 2 Regeneration sounds like a game for kids, but no, it is not. This is certainly a game aimed at an adult audience due to the darker themes that are within. You raise a princess into adulthood, or at least try to. There are many pitfalls and wrong turns that can lead her very astray. Very fascinating old school style release. Progress Orders is a poorly reviewed game, probably due to the misleading marketing which makes you think it's a dungeon crawling RPG, but in reality it's more of a management sim thing, heavily menu driven, business style management sim, which is totally not what people expect. Soccer Club Life Playing Manager is the alternative to Football Manager and is in fact more hands-on since you can take part in the matches too, which is fascinating. It may not have endless depths or additions as SaGa's franchise, but it may be worth looking into. Startup Company really has the driest name of all, and I'm not surprised it didn't sell super well as a Play Asia exclusive. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it's a fine game that does its job well, but it's not the most impulsive of purchasers trying to get a company up and running into a business empire. Sumiko Gurashi to Kuro Sutekina Sumikoshima is an upcoming release that against all odds will have English in its Japanese release. This is a pet raising simulator as far as I can tell, with mini games and such. It looks super adorable, but knowing the publisher, it will have as much depth as a puddle. Sword and Fairy Inn 2 is a whimsical take on the restaurant running genre. Get ingredients, set the menu, set the customers, and make sure they leave satisfied. It's done to death, but it's done well here, and this was a Play Asia exclusive. Terra Tech is a fairly obscure import exclusive. It's a creative building game where you construct vehicles to accomplish a mission. Definitely one for those who like making things with Lego or Meccano. Tetsudo, Nippon, Rosentabi EX, Tozen Densha, Odyaku Hakone Hen is the second train driving game with real-time video zooming by, and it's the second one that has English. A simple game if you're a train enthusiast. Touhou, Mystia's Izakaya is another restaurant management game, this time starring characters from the Touhou series. It has some really nice artwork that adds some nice production value to the game, and this is one of the highest rated games of its kind, so certainly add this to your collection if you like some restaurant management gameplay. Townsman Kingdom Rebuilt is a mobile game turned to the Switch. A pretty decent game for town building fans, probably doesn't have anything on the classics and may have some trappings of the mobile origins that bring it down a little bit, but potentially a decent option if you miss those classic PC games. Truck Driver Gold. Well, the base game of this got a physical release in the West, but not this Gold Edition. The Gold Edition comes with extra stuff, downloadable content. Whether it's on the cartridge or not, I'm currently unawares, but hopefully it's a more complete release than the Western one. Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher is a kaiju raising and training simulator, bit of a weird one, but you randomly generate a new monster, putting it through some trials to build up its stats, and then you stick it in some competition with another giant kaiju. The gameplay is simple but endearing. I do think it is overpriced, but it's super unique like the old Monster Rancher games. Only the Southeast Asian physical release of this got English, so get that one. World Neverland is a poor world simulation game where you have lots of different job types, things to do, make it another life sort of thing, and obviously it looks like absolute bobbins. This is one I would stay well away from. Deck building. Alright, you guys know I don't particularly like deck building games. I think they're a bit boring and always take me out of a game world, but they are popular for a reason. So this is a mix of actual competitive card games and your ever-present roguelike deck building RPGs. Just stuff with cards in them, okay? Arcana of Paradise The Tower is a roguelike deck builder that definitely tries to be Slay the Spire but has real-time battles to add to the tension and urgency. Most reviews seem to indicate it's not a home run though, as it's perhaps too easy and lacks replayability despite having 20 children to choose from as you delve into the tower. Card NCL is a bit like Mega Man Battle Network. In fact, it's made by the same company. Instead of the Mega Man characters in it, they have characters from their own properties as the battle cards. A lot of people love this battle system, and it is worth an import if you do like it, although you may want to plump for the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, which will release in 2026. It'll play fine on the original Switch, but would also play on Switch 2 with major performance enhancements. Cardfight Vanguard Dear Days 1 and 2 are two separate releases that are more like traditional card battling games, so even though it has cards, it's almost a different kind of genre to roguelike deck builder, but this is based off an anime, and there's some really good production value here. I'm super shocked these two even got an English translation, what with all the card descriptions and stuff, but if you enjoy like Yu-Gi-Oh, then this may be a series to try for yourself. Chrono Arc is a roguelike deck-building RPG that's built for the single-player experience. Recruit team members, each of whom is unique, but be careful. If you die, your deck and everything else is reset. Reviews for this on PC are really good, so look forward to the Japanese Switch physical release in January. Heart of Crown appears to be based on a real-life card game, at least I think so. I don't really know for sure. I don't even know if this is a new game or one based off the 2017 PC release. I'm not very useful, so I will need your help to explain this one. But I do know that this upcoming game does have really nice artwork, and it's releasing in December. Library of Ruina was a very popular release on PC, like a cult phenomenon. I don't think it quite hit the same highs on Nintendo Switch, but the physical, being an import exclusive, probably didn't help. Good story, good character writing, and fun deck building gameplay make this a winner. Sea Horizon is a turn-based RPG with roguelike gameplay, with the attacks being based on cards that you stick in a small deck. So it's certainly the lesser of the deck building games in terms of that focus, but it's got dice rolls and stuff as you fight your way through the land. Not my type of game at all, but I could admire it when I played it. Shogun Showdown is another very popular release on PC, and I've found it strange that the physical was only in Japan. Here there's more turn-based combat with some chunky pixel work with gameplay that's easy to pick up but hard to master. Definitely one of the best of its kind. Yohane the Parhelion, Numazu in the Mirage. When this was first announced, I was really excited about delving into a Yohane JRPG, but then it came out and it's a deck building battler. Super colourful, but looking back I am a bit disappointed in how it came out. A huge focus on RNG with things lining up in your favour. It's fine for what it is though, just not what I personally hoped. Zoeti is another turn-based battler, but this time you actually use a deck of playing cards. It's slow to start but gets better over its relatively short runtime. I'm not a fan of the art style personally, but I'm probably in the minority there. Survival. This may be a tired genre these days. They're kind of going out of fashion, but they're still fun to be had. There are only a few handful of import exclusives. Ark Survival Evolved is technically not an import exclusive since it did get a Western physical release. However, it's undeniable that the Japanese physical release is far superior, since while it's not complete on cartridge, it is still a vastly updated version of the game. Pretty much the remake of the original Switch version. Like, originally the Switch port was so bad, they did it from scratch again, so get the Japanese edition if you can. Dead in Vinland is a survival game with a strong focus on narrative. It's half choose-your-own-adventure type thing as you guide your Viking family to survival. Some RPG elements, management will also come into play, but at the end of the day, you're trying to survive on a mysterious island. The physical release was a Play Asia exclusive. Deadcraft could be put in the action genre, but I feel the focus on crafting makes it a nice choice if you're into the survival genre. You use zombie corpses to make weapons and stuff, so it's really over the top and schlocky. Not the most polished experience out there, but an interesting experiment from the developers of the Story of Seasons games. Undying is not 100% a survival game. It's a game with a story-heavy narrative, a bit of adventure-type gameplay thrown in for good measure, but at the end of the day, you're trying to survive the undead apocalypse, teaching your child how to live without you, gather materials needed to survive, and pass on the knowledge to the next generation. Interesting game, not widely loved, but still a good few people who find it quite unique in a crowded market. Puzzle games. Now, puzzle games may not be everyone's insta-buy, but there are a lot of games here that Japan and Asia had faith in to have a physical retail release, unlike the West. Arranger. Now, I know that the subtitle of this game says Role Puzzling Adventure. For me, the trailer clearly shows that it's mostly a puzzle game, which is fine, and it looks really nice. I believe Limited Run did announce that they were going to be doing this at some point, but that was years ago, and they've not mentioned it since, so it could be a proper import exclusive forever at this point. Behind the Screen and Defoliation is a double pack of games that constitute as puzzle games but in slightly different ways. Neither are anything to write home about. Behind the Screen is okay, a stealth heavy puzzle game with some other quirky mechanics thrown in for good measure, whereas Defoliation is pretty much hated for its obtuse point and click design. Botany Manor is a cool looking first person puzzle game as you explore an old manor and solve puzzles around it. You are a botanist and you grow plants to unveil mysterious qualities that they have. It looks like a really chill time, to be fair. Death Squared is a puzzle game that's made with co-op in mind. You can play alone as you guide some cubes to safety, but you'll get more out of it via 2 players where you'll either bond with your friend or family or trap their fingers in a drawer because you're so angry at them. It's only available via One Print Games in Southeast Asia. Human Resource Machine Deluxe is actually a double pack. Yeah, despite the name, this release in Japan contains the eponymous Human Resource Machine plus its sequel, 7 Billion Humans. You think that would be the main name in the package because it's the newer game, but I guess the original was more popular. Very well made games, but certainly not made for everyone, okay? Stupid people like me may not enjoy it so much. Indigo 7 is a pretty cheap looking puzzle game that's kind of bewildering on the eyes. There's so many colors, so many jewels on screen, it's kind of overwhelming. You know, sometimes less is more. And the fact that this game isn't really talked about much at all, well, that says it all. Thankfully, you can get the Japanese physical release very cheap right now. Mom Hid My Game Collection is a cheap import exclusive release that contains 4 quirky games in one package. Mom Hid My Game 1 and 2, Hide and Dance, and My Brother Ate My Pudding. Strange games that borderline has like meme art for it, but you do various activities described within the title. Mr. Driller Encore is more of an action puzzle game, also known as Mr. Driller Drill Land. This is a remake of a GameCube game that originally released only in Japan up until this Switch port. Well, that also only released in Asia, physically, in Japan, but it has English this time. This has various games that heavily involve digging in order to overcome some puzzle in your way. Murder by Numbers is a nice mix of Sudoku and a detective game. You uncover evidence by solving the classic number puzzles. So it's got like a bit of a story like Ace Attorney if you're into that sort of thing. This physical release was exclusive to Play Asia, but it is one of the few that has not received a reprint as of yet. Or at least not recently, so it's not easy to grab one of them these days. Namco no Puzzle, Namco Dai Hanshoku, is a puzzle game based around mushrooms. It's as cheap as they come when it comes to match 3 puzzlers. I don't know why anyone would get excited about matching mushrooms like jewels. Sure, blobs, why not? Mushrooms, I have no idea. Nampore 10,000 plus Puzzle Nomado, and Nampore Relax and Classic. This is really difficult for me to say, so many ands, but these are 2 separate physical releases that will get Sudoku fans all wet with excitement. There are more Sudoku puzzles here between these 2 packages that it could last you a lifetime. And one of them isn't just Sudoku, okay? Imagine that, it's Sudoku and more. Mishitsukara no Dashutsu Unme o Tsunagu 35 no Nazo is a double pack of 2 escape room type puzzle games. I don't know if they're any good or not since I've not played them before, but they look pretty cool to me if you're into the genre. Don't expect any masterful planned logic or mind-blowing twists like you'd get in some of the bigger budget examples of the genre, but maybe they are harmless, cheap fun. Pico Park 1 and 2 is a double pack of games that can only be played in multiplayer. 2 to 8 players overcome the obstacles in the way as pixel cats work together. You can play locally or online, and you have to cooperate, otherwise you will get nowhere. I can see why this didn't get a Western physical release. Multiplayer, online, puzzle games, kind of niche despite how very well regarded both these games are. Pixel Puzzle 3-in-1 is a really good triple pack of 3 really solid puzzle games. There's a bit of Sudoku mixed in with some drawing lines to make a picture. Simple, but don't underestimate the quality if you're into simple but effective puzzle games. Q and Q2 Physical Edition is a double pack of 2 games that are minimalistic in their presentation, but relentless in their mini-game-like puzzle game presentation. These are like micro games that you'd find in a WarioWare title. Here you draw on the screen to help solve whatever wackiness is thrown at you. Serial Cleaners, I had a tough time deciding where to put this one. But it's like a stealth game where you clean up the crime scene. The levels are approached in a puzzle-like way though, at least if it's anything like the first game. I played that one, but not the sequel. It's pretty unique. Shanghai Legend and Shanghai Refresh are 2 fake Zhong games. Solitaire Mahjong, where you match 2 tiles to make the funny shape disappear. It's like building the pyramids, but in reverse. Obviously cheap and not one to go out of your way to purchase unless you really need to buy this physically. There are like a billion of these on the eShop, but these 2 are import exclusive physical releases. Suika Special Edition is a physical release of the global phenomenon Suika. This was a digital behemoth originally, but then it got a quiet physical release later down the line in Japan. It's a cheap physical to match the cheap price of the game, but it does come with extra skins or something. Whatever you unlock in the game, well, you get more of it here. Sushi Shot plus 3 kinds of special set is a quad pack of games. 3 of the games included are action puzzle games, just sushi variations of the Suika game that I just talked about, and the 3 of them offer slightly different takes on the idea. The best thing about this though isn't even the puzzle thing, it's the sushi kart racer, which in my opinion is ironically worth it just for that alone. The Escape Room Chronicles is a cheap quad pack of, well, exactly what it says on the tin, 4 escape room adventures made by Intense. These are short-ish episodes, each a few hours long and solidly done if feeling slightly out of date these days, definitely taking you back to a more archaic but potentially charming time. Touhou Spell Bubble is an action puzzle game with rhythm elements, which is often found in Touhou games. If it ain't Danmaku, it's probably rhythm, and this is for those who enjoy a bit of Tetris or Puyo Puyo, but also want some Touhou characters within it. It's supposed to be pretty decent. Party games. We all like to party, right? There's nothing like whipping out a party game after Christmas lunch or after a few beers. Competitive fun with a friend that may end up with a few hard feelings, but they let you get to know the true person behind the friendly mask. Momotaro Densetsu Showa Heisei Reiwa mo Teiban is a huge name in Japan. It's one of the best-selling game series out there, often outselling the likes of Mario Party. I don't know much about it since the series has almost never been translated to English. However, quite a long time after the Japanese release, there was an Asian English physical release. The first time it's had English as far as I'm aware, so now is a good chance to find out why it's so popular. Once again, the Japanese release does not have English, but the Asian one does. Let's Play Oink Games is a fine collection of many popular board games from Oink Games, 7 in total I think, and almost all of them require more than one player, although it mentions CPU being eligible to fill the game, so I don't know if there's single player or not. But yeah, one for fans of party games or tabletop card games, I know you're out there. Machikoro with Everyone. This is a digital rendition of a supposedly well-selling physical board game. This combines Machikoro with its sister game Machikoro Plus into one package. Don't know anything about it aside from it will have English when it releases in November, and the limited edition of it comes with an actual analog board game. Monster Fruit Academy has a history that's more interesting than the actual game. Originally, it was only available at one specific store chain in Taiwan and in-store only, which made it hard for importers to get a hold of, but eventually it went to a wider release in the area and online. A simple looking party game, nice and colorful. Obakedoro is a game of cops and robbers, but if it was made by Tim Burton. Despite looking like a hard sell, apparently it's been a popular release, especially in Japan, and maybe some exposure by Nintendo, allowing online users a chance to trial it for a week, gave it a good boost. I personally don't know, but there is a sequel coming to Switch too. Sadly not physical though. Party Time. Up to 6 players can join in this party game as you play a variety of classic arcade style games in colorful art styles. Games we've seen elsewhere before, but maybe good renditions of them, I don't know. Pettoon's Party is an older import exclusive, which is only ever talked about by anyone on this planet when I make this yearly video. Literally not a soul has uttered the phrase Pettoon's Party since I made this video last summer. That's how forgettable and inessential, and also how creepy it is. Uma Masune Pretty Girls Derby Dash is a popular release, or at least I think it is. I could be getting it mixed up with a mobile game, something like that, but this looks like a nicely made party game with a cool art style and lots of personality. It looks frantic, energetic, and the trailer makes me want to give it a go. The Game of Life for Nintendo Switch is getting a surprise English release in Asia. This game has been out in Japan for a good while now, and it even came with a funky controller, but if you want to play it in English, then this release is in December, and it will be the one to get. It is a board game that should be super quirky if its reputation is anything to go by. Rhythm and music. Yes, rhythm and music games are quite popular, especially in Asian regions, and there are some imports you may want to consider if you're a musical person yourself. Disney Music Parade Encore looks to be a party rhythm game where you can play by yourself, or up to 4 players can mess up Disney songs in perfect disharmony. 60 famous Disney songs included, definitely one for Disney fans to get a hold of. I'm just surprised that this didn't get a Western physical release. As far as I know, you should get the Asian physical release, not the Japanese one, because that one does not have English. Gunvolt Records Psychronicle is supposedly a pretty poor package, but reviews were mostly from the sparse DLC-ridden digital release, whereas this physical release has most of it on the cartridge. There are a couple of DLC packs that release later on that are not on the cartridge, but if you like music and the personality of the Gunvolt series, maybe give it a go. It's often found pretty cheap these days. Hatsune Miku Project Diva Mega 39s does not have English, and it can be a bit of a hassle getting through the menus. However, I do truly think it's worth it, as you'll find one of the best song-rich rhythm games in the Switch's library. Even if you think you're too old to understand Vocaloid stuff like myself, you're not. It's a lot of fun, the music is nice, and the presentation is excellent. Kamitsubaki City Ensemble has a mix of rhythm game and visual novel adventure. At the time of me making this, it's just literally come out, so I'm not sure what the gameplay ratio is, but the trailer leads me to believe it is in favor of the rhythm section. Hopefully, like the Gunvolt games, the physical release has more songs compared to the digital release, which was DLC ridden. Kizuna AI Touch the Beat is a content-light rhythm game that was formerly a VR game. Apparently only has 15 songs, and it's lacking its original unique selling point, so it's probably not worth it to most people unless you're a big fan of the franchise. Let's Sing 2021 and 2022 are two separate releases that did get a Western retail release. However, the Hong Kong releases are slightly different in the fact that they offer some different songs. You get some Chinese songs in here in their respective packages, so think of it as a unique variant rather than an import exclusive. Lyrica 1 and 2 is a really nice double pack of rhythm games that have a lot of variety in musical style, all mostly from Chinese creators. I believe there is a storyline to follow on the second game too, but the gameplay is really nice, and although the music may not be to everyone's cup of tea, I enjoyed my time with it. 6-Star Gate Star Trail is a falling notes rhythm game, a pretty decent one if you're into this kind of music. In the middle of the song, the game field will often get wider, allowing for more notes, which can add a whole layer of trouble into being in the zone, a nice spanner in the works that more hardcore rhythm fans may enjoy. Touhou Danmaku Kagura Fantasia Lost and the same name, but with Extra Song Pack 1 are two separate releases, but obviously the later Asian release with the Extra Song Pack 1 will be the one to pick up these days since it just has a bit more content. This offers two modes of gameplay. One is standard rhythm gameplay, while the other offers a shmup style thing going on. Visual novels. Japan and Asia go mad for visual novels, and while the genre is making a fantastic stride in the West, as can be seen by the developers' willingness to include English language translations, they're still not quite ready for the same amount of physical releases on Western store shelves. So that's why a huge chunk of import exclusives are visual novels. Due to the, shall we say, well-trodden mechanics of a visual novel, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on each entry here, okay? Abyss of the Sacrifice is a visual novel mixed with an escape room type adventure thing. It released on the PSP originally and was known for its obtuse puzzling, but you have a bunch of girls trying to get to the surface of the Earth after the post-apocalypse. Most people advise using a guide for the puzzles while enjoying the story. Air was the second visual novel from Key, and when it originally released in Japan, it didn't have English, but recently there has been a reissue of the game that does have English on the cartridge. You can tell by the little icon on the box art. The other versions you can update to have English. The Alchemist of Ars Magna is a very expensive game for the same reason that it does mix some dungeon crawling and RPG battling. However, it feels very tacked on to this interesting fantasy story as an alchemy school tries to stop the magical desertification from encroaching on their land. Aimaro Chocolate is a romance adventure visual novel with a dog girl and a cat girl who work in a cafe. There's obviously some furry fantasy going on here, but I mean, I'm not against it. I'm just not sure it's worth hurling up a fur ball for every morning. Avery Attorney is a bit like Ace Attorney in the fact that it's a parody of the series but with old French art and people with bird heads. It's a bit weird, I haven't played it, but I think the adventuring is much less here, hence why I put it in the visual novel category. Could be wrong, let me know. Either way, it's supposedly worth a play. Bakumatsu Renka Shinsengumi is an old-school otome visual novel, one that was originally on the PlayStation 2. This Switch release is the first time it's been in English, but it's supposed to be a decent if slightly predictable example of the genre, a historical fantasy a bit like Hakuoki. Bunny Garden is a bit of a tough one to categorize because there is some management in here, drunk simulator of sort of thing going on, but the story is all about getting to know the girls who work at the bar. It's all about getting them drunk enough to play Twister with you in the back room at 4 AM. One for fans of culture. Buried Stars is one of those interesting Korean-only physical releases that does have English. This is also a super rare game these days. Not from super rare games, I mean it's just really rare. It is a game of death sort of thing, where there is a game show and it goes awry. Supposedly okay, but the rarity is the most interesting thing about it. Butterfly Poison Hana no Chain is a darkly themed otome release where originally the physical release did not have English, but the second printing of it put English on the cartridge, so make sure you buy that one that has the English text icon on the box. Karatagra is an upcoming visual novel remake of a story from 2005. Manga Gamer did an English version of this a decade ago, but this is the first time it's going to be on consoles, and reviews are pretty good, although it was a bit naughty, which has obviously been taken out for the console release. Who knows how that will affect the quality. The Centennial Case, a Shijima story, is a weird one to categorize. I could have put this into the miscellaneous one, but it's close enough to a visual novel that I'll stick it here. It's essentially an FMV adventure game, a detective mystery with different cases to solve, and it's really well done. The voice acting, direction, and production are all solid. Clannad Side Stories is one of 3 Clannad physical releases. This is the least essential of the bunch. It is a collection of short stories to fill the gaps of the original game, prequel, sequel, and midquel stories that are only for those who read the original Clannad and really want more of it. Crimson Flower That Divides, Lunar Coupling, originally a PSP Otome visual novel, this is the first time it's been in English. This story involves a society where women have become rare, and naturally many a bloke will get excited when you turn up as the protagonist. Another Girl, Curse of Kudan, is a Yuri visual novel that's supposedly okay, nothing overly special aside from the artwork and your levels of horniness. It has horror themes to it with a similar premise to Oringu, you'll die in 7 days if you see something, that sort of thing. And the last thing you want is for your lesbian anime babe to perish, so you want to stop that stuff. DC Da Capo Retune is a remake of a popular visual novel series. I heard the first entry isn't exactly well regarded, but you gotta start somewhere, and this is the first time it's officially gonna be in English, which has got many people very excited. It's releasing at the end of October, so maybe by the time I get this out, maybe it's already out, I'm not sure. Daedalus, The Awakening of Golden Jazz, is a rare import exclusive, a detective visual novel where the only way to get the English is via the rarer Hong Kong release. It's super annoying that the endless amounts of Japanese stock available don't have English. Not worth it for the quality of the story, it's regarded as a pretty bad game. Dear Mirror Flower is not a particularly well-loved visual novel, pretty mid from reviews that I've seen. It's out on PC already, but the Japanese edition is supposedly coming to the Switch next year. Dusk Index Gion is an upcoming release coming in January next year. The game hasn't been released anywhere before, but expect a detective murdery mystery game set in the Meiji era. Well, maybe. It's indicated there may be some time tomfoolery going on with this one. Ever 17, Never 7 Double Pack is a double pack of 2 VNs. One is a slightly worse variation of a very highly rated visual novel, Ever 17. The other game, Never 7, is a middling one. Not that it's bad, but certainly not as good as its sequel. But these are both mystery visual novels that have a confinement as a theme. Nice to have them both in one package. Everlasting Flowers is a short visual novel with a theme of depression within a coming-of-age scenario. Pretty good from reviews, and it's a kinetic visual novel that's designed to make you cry. Fantastical Mystery Adventure Ultimate Jumbo Jet Murder Case is a very obscure physical import, only released on one specific Japanese web store. Barely anyone has played it in order to tell us whether it's good or not. It's likely to have been machine translated, but yeah, it's a hard game to get if you want all the physical releases with English. Food Girls 1 and 2 are 2 food-themed visual novels, not considered anything worth going out of your way to play, but I have a soft spot for them. Expect a management-style game as you try to revive a local food place in town, and many of the stores are run by cute girls. Isn't that convenient? The Fox Awaits Me and The Fox Awaits Me Hannah are 2 folklore-inspired VNs, one for the furry folk who get excited about girls with fox ears. These 2 Korean-developed games aren't hugely popular, but I'm sure they have their fans out there. From Madness with Love is a unique-looking Otome visual novel. Most Otome fans will be used to a very particular art style, but this is going for something different. It's a comedy-themed pixel art story that's on the short side. If you want something with a lighter tone, then this could be one to look into. I don't think the romance is particularly strong here either. Quite breezy. Ginka is a mystery visual novel where you meet a long-lost friend who hasn't aged a day since she first disappeared. She's come back and all she remembers is that she is in love with you. It is another dose of comedy, and this seems to have been reviewed pretty decently. Gloom and Doom is a short Western visual novel that is a coming-of-age drama and happens to have some demons in it. There aren't many reviews for this to say how it is for sure, but there's no grand enthusiasm for it. Grisaya Phantom Trigger 1-5 and 5.5-8 are 2 separate releases that complete the whole saga of action-focused visual novels. One thing that is agreed upon is that the story gets better and better with every volume, each of which is a handful of hours long. Together they come together to make one epic story that is well worth investing your time into. Grisaya Trilogy is obviously the superior option when it comes to Grisaya though. These 3 games have almost legendary status when it comes to the visual novel community, each one being a mammoth read that starts out as a slice of life thing before transforming into a whole other beast. There's like 150 hours worth of story content in this package. Hakuoki Sweet School Life is taking the Hakuoki characters you VN Otomi fans will all know and love and transpose them into a high school setting, a modern one too. And this is the first time this is going to be released in English, and the physical release will be exclusive to Play Asia when it comes out next year, I think. Hakuoki Winds and Blossoms is the OG Hakuoki, although this Switch release is both the original game slammed together with quality of life improvements, and this is supposedly the best versions of these classic Otomi VNs. The physical release is also exclusive to Play Asia. Hana Awase New Moon is actually 4 separate games, but were mostly commonly sold in a quad pack, which is not easy to get a hold of these days, to be fair. These contain 4 stories that I assume are connected in some fashion to one another. Perhaps each love interest has their own release, but I don't know for sure. Harmonia is a short kinetic visual novel from Key. Definitely not their best work, but if you've got a couple of afternoons to kill and are looking for a post-apocalyptic story with a robotic protagonist, which they seem oddly fond of, then maybe give it a go. It's not overly expensive last time I checked. Hashihime of the Old Bucktown is a boy love visual novel. There's not a whole lot to choose from when it comes to English language imports, but this is a highly rated one set in the Taisho era. And the romance aspect is not so strong, it's more focused on the plot than actually banging dudes, but yeah. Hatsumira from The Future Undying is a strange sci-fi visual novel that I can't even explain the premise to you because you wouldn't take it seriously, but it is a nicely regarded long VN from Frontwing that has dragon girls, fighter pilots, and an isekai plot that makes it stand out. Hookah Haze is a popular import due to its premise alone. It is a short visual novel adventure game that has you making the most of your last days of your life with girls in a hookah bar. A distinct art style and some nice fan service go a long way here, but don't expect a masterpiece or anything. If My Heart Had Wings is a very popular and well-regarded visual novel from Pultop. It's a story about a group of friends and a flight school, a nice slice of life drama with a great cast of characters, pretty long too. The physical release was exclusive to Play Asia. Island is a simple name for a visual novel with an incredibly complicated plot. This is a highly rated VN from Frontwing with a focus on the mysterious goings-on an island, and you wash up on the shore with no memory whatsoever. Kamitsubaki City Regenerate is part of the same series as the other Kamitsubaki game I mentioned in the rhythm section, but I believe this one, I think it does include some rhythm aspects, but it's mostly focused on the visual novel storytelling, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. Kamen originally released without English, but now there is a reprint that does include English on the cartridge. This was Key's debut visual novel, and while most would say it's not their magnum opus, you can instantly see their modus operandi of the team's future possibilities, and this is the first time it's ever been in English, so I think the translation should be rewarded with a purchase. La Storia della Arcana Famiglia Renato is a fairly old Otomi visual novel, originally a PSP game. This Switch version is the first time it's been in English, and it's set in the Mafia world, and there is a focus on action to the script with lots of choices. The Letter is a horror visual novel, and I would say it's a pretty good one at that. While not every aspect of the presentation will be to everyone's taste, I think they put a lot more work into it than most non-Japanese visual novels. It's creepy, it's quite lengthy, and no corners were cut. The physical release was exclusive to Play Asia. Little Busters is often considered to be Key's magnum opus, the other being Clannad, an absolute monster of a high school drama starring a group of friends and their slice of life. It starts off upbeat, but like all Key VNs, it wants to rip your soul out and then stamp on it. And this is a particularly grueling soul-crushing here, so yeah, you'll remember it for the rest of your life. Loopers is one of Key's more recent entries, going for a shorter, kinetic experience. I'm not an expert, but it seems they are favoring the shorter stories these days. Well, aside from that 200-hour monster they put out a couple of years back. But again, this is not their best effort, but still enjoyable if you want some time stuff going on. Love Delivery, Love Login are 2 shortest visual novels together in one package. Supposedly pretty decent, especially if you're into some suggestive CGs. If you're wanting a good story, maybe not. But the biggest selling point of this game was the collector's edition, which has become cultural heritage at this point. Love Esquire is a management visual novel where you are about to be shipped off to war, and therefore you want to get your end away before your inevitable demise as a frontline meets shield. It's genuinely a very funny game, has good production value, and tries to do things differently. The physical release was a Play Asia exclusive. Love Live, Nijigasaki High School Idol Club, Tokimeki Roadmap to the Future, it's a long-ass title, It's an adventure management type visual novel, one assumes, like the Tokimeki Memorial games, where you need to be in the right place at the right time. Reviews seem to indicate that it's mostly just for fans of the Love Live series, rather than someone who would be less generous about being fleeced of their money for this game. It's not bad, just pricier than it should be. The Love Kami trilogy is busting at the seams with content, or at least the content of cleavage, thanks to this triple pack of games. Many would consider these fairly shallow visual novels with not much to offer aside from the visuals, as each game has a busty goddess come down to earth to cause chaos in the protagonist's life. Lover Kiss Endless Memories is an enhanced re-release of Lover Kiss, this time including English, which is almost a miracle. While it primarily involves photo shoots, the story is told via visual novel segments. If you want a dating simulator with photography, then this will be an essential release when it comes out in November. Lunaria is another short visual novel from Key, and another with non-human female interests. They seem to have a fondness for that pigeonhole. This isn't post-apocalyptic though, it's in a VR-filled future. It's a pure kinetic love story that's pretty good, one of their better recent short VNs. Maitetsu Pure Station is a purified version of the original Maitetsu, which players of are still recovering from bleaching their eyes and their conscience. This is one for train enthusiasts with lengthy, mind-bendingly in-depth sections about trains and the lollies that drive them. Meiji Tokyo Renka Full Moon is a comedic otomige where the main heroine is transported back to the late 1800s and coincidentally bumps into super handsome dudes during her daily life. A decent otome in terms of reviews, and this Switch release was the first time it was released in English. Miracle Snack Shop is a Play Asia exclusive that has some management style gameplay, as your snack shop is also home to two lovely ladies. One slightly homely, another a bit cold and serious. Naturally, you'll want to date both, right? Because we're blokes, we're not that picky. Mizuchi is a short, simple, non-Japanese VN that has a surprisingly decent review score. Usually English-made VNs tend to get dogpiled on, but this seems to do the Japanese folklore pretty well and rather respectful. Love Collection is a huge visual novel import. While it contains the middling marathon of the first game, it also contains the second game, which somehow morphs the narrative into one of the greatest visual novels of all time. If you've got the time to invest in visual novels, this should be on your bucket list. My Girlfriend is a Mermaid is perhaps worth it for the name alone. I do wonder which way around the mermaid is, because that's quite an important difference for me on a personal level, like which part is the fish, which part is the maid. Melon Parker is an upcoming visual novel. I don't actually know if it's an otome or not, since information is quite thin on the ground right now. It's made by a prolific developer, so hopefully it's decent, and the box art has a lot of dudes on the front of it, so maybe it's an otome or something like that, I don't know. Nightshade is a pretty highly rated otome set in the world of the shinobi. The main lady is a ninja in this historical romance drama that seems to have a bigger focus on the plot than the actual romance. Of the Red, the Light, and the Ayakashi Tsuzuri is a mystery visual novel that's swimming in Japanese mythology. It's got a very nice, unique art style, and is very highly regarded. If you want something non-otome, non-fanservicey, non-romance visual novel to import, this could be the one. Speaking of one is a remake of a really old visual novel. It's a high school romance that is meant to make you cry. It's decent, but seems to come off as a poor man's Clannad. At least it's like 20% shorter, so you might actually finish it. Oshi Rambu, Waifus Over Husbandos plus Love or Die, is a Yuri double pack of decent but very short Yuri visual novels. Some really excellent artwork that you'll find in a story of cat and mouse as one lady chases another, almost literally. The Planetarian collection contains the universally loved Planetarian, plus its basic, unnecessary, and incredibly short prequel, Snow Globe. You're only getting like 5 hours worth of content here in total, but it's worth it for the main game alone, and the physical isn't really that expensive. You'll get a sweet kinetic visual novel that you'll read over a couple of afternoons, and you'll still think about it a decade later. Return to Shirinagasu Island is a detective mystery game, a remake of a game with pretty interesting art style for a Japanese visual novel. It's about an island of a millionaire, and it's perhaps worryingly on point with some world events that you all know about. Review Starlight El Dorado is a visual novel specifically for fans of the anime. It's a romance-free sequel to the anime that seems to be pretty decent if you know the characters. Those unfamiliar with the franchise may struggle to find the enthusiasm for it. Road 59 is a recently released visual novel that is set in the world of the Mafia. Due to its recency, there are only a couple of reviews available, and as I'm making this video, let's just say they are not flattering. There are no verbal reviews, but the score, well, it's got 2.33 out of 10. On VNDB, and that's not just from one person. Sainan Tantei Saiga is a comedic detective game that has a down-on-his-luck detective taking on various supernatural cases. It has a couple of nice characters, but on the whole, it's a pretty average experience. It could be better. There is a lot of potential in the first case, but it sort of drifts away into mediocrity over the next few cases. Saint Maker is another horror visual novel from the same developers as The Letter, this time involving religious themes, supposedly fairly decent, but the bonus game included in this physical package called Perfect Gold is supposed to be even better than the main game, even though it is a lot shorter. The physical is a Play Asia exclusive. Seabed is another Play Asia exclusive, and this is a highly rated Yuri VN that's a bit old school in its presentation. It's quite unique and a bit of a slow burner, but many people really enjoy this. It's a slice of life drama, a kinetic VN that's a nice read before bed. 7 Days. This is a pretty well regarded Nakige, though there is a horror vibe to it with ghostly things going on and impending death, the usual stuff. It's episodic in nature with each one focusing on a different girl, I think. Interesting and considered good by those who it gels with, but I did notice some people completely bounce off it, so your mileage may vary. Shinjuku Some is a middling visual novel, again one with a great premise but not so great reviews. I swear VNDB is against non-romance VNs, but I think it's probably spot on here with a dodgy English translation getting in the way of some crime narrative. Shoot and Order is a pretty ambitious title about finding out how you died. While it's certainly a visual novel, it tries to give different styles of VN in one, with some small gameplay gimmicks here and there. Interesting story and art, and it's from the minds of the 100 Line and Danganronpa and so on, and the English is added to the Asian and Japanese releases as a download, sadly not on the cartridge. Some Convenience Store seems to have only had a small print since it's been out of print since, well, it released. There is a bit of management here for the Convenience Store alongside the lovely ladies to date, and the art style is very well done. It's from the same developer as The Fox Awaits Me and My Girlfriend is a Mermaid, but this is considered to be the best of the bunch of their games on the Switch. Star Melody You Made Me Dreamer was originally sold in separate chapters, and those that have played it say that it didn't really work. The start wasn't interesting enough to invest your time into 13 more chapters or whatever it was. However, the physical release will have all the chapters together, and if you want it, you'll definitely want to get the Asian version, not the Japanese one, okay? The Asian version is the only one that has English. Steam Prison and Steam Prison Beyond the Steam are two otomiges that are the main game and the fan disc. The main one is considered pretty good, but the fan disc is a bit of a letdown, or at least not quite as good as it could have been. The theming of this world is a bit dark if you want something a little bit different. Stellar of the End is Key's latest console release, another short-ish visual novel, another robot thing going on, but there's no romance in this one. It's a kinetic sci-fi outing that's supposedly really good, a very nice recent outing for them. Symphonic Rain is a highly rated, interesting release. The art style stands out and there is a musical theme to it, even some rhythm gameplay elements if you want to take part in them or not. Like many great VNs, it can be a bit of a slow burn, and there is a distinct mood to this one that's really set by the rainy town that you live in. Taisho, Cross Alice All in One, and Heads and Tails are two releases that are the original game and the fan disc. Otomiges with episodic storytelling, they're considered pretty good. In terms of English, it is a little bit complicated though. All in One got English as a free update on the eShop, whereas Heads and Tails originally did not have English, but the physical release got a second printing, and on that second printing, it had English. You can tell by the little logo on the box. The Ancient Magus Bride, Midsummer's Mirage, and the Journey of Dreams is a recently released visual novel. It came out a couple of weeks ago as I'm making this video, and nobody has written a single thing about it yet. It's based off an anime or something published by Bushiroad Games, who have a slightly dodgy track record. It's either going to be only for fans of the anime, or it's going to be kind of garbage. There's very little in between with those guys. The Medical Examination Diary, Teamwork in Paradise, was an extremely popular import this year, not at its initial release, but after it was announced that the game was going to be delisted from all digital platforms after just a few months on sale, people went out in droves to pick up the physical before it disappeared, and now it is out of print. The VNs in this release are not masterpieces narratively, but boy would Van Gogh be standing high when looking at the artwork here. Tokyo Chronos and Alt Dios Beyond Chronos Double Pack are two games that were previously made as VR games, but then the developer said, hey, we should probably make some money out of this, and so ported them to more standard game machines. I don't know if they're good or not though. The Town of Nie and Iromusubi are two BL visual novels, both considered excellent examples of the genre, maybe the best available for the English language audiences on the Switch. The main game and the fan disc offer some really good stories with boy-on-boy bangage. Tomoyo After was the second offering of Clannad on the Switch, the sequel of sorts following one of the more popular characters from the Clannad story. Some people absolutely love this, some people find the character a bit too different from what they originally knew, so your mileage may vary depending on your attachment to the source material, and Tomoyo in particular. Virtual Girl at World's End. This has not been out very long, but review scores seem to indicate it's a slightly above average VN that's set in a dystopian future where girls perform on livestream as the only means of entertainment. It sounds like the future's not too far off, to be honest. Voice Love on Air is another boy love visual novel. The numbers are slowly increasing. This one isn't quite as well regarded as some others mentioned in this section. There's probably a reason the physical release is found dirt cheap these days. There's some dating simulator aspects in this one too, and there's like a male idol theme to it. Maybe too modern as a theming for some. Alright, now we're gonna get a bit multi-genre, because now I'm gonna go through some games that did get a Western physical release, but via a low-print, limited company, where for the most part, if you didn't pre-order them, well, good luck getting them now. These did not officially release at retail, and therefore, I still think importing versions from Japan or Asia are on the whole a great option still. Let's start with limited run games in North America. Azure Striker Gunvolt 3 is a bit of a pointless release now. Limited Run did this game that was also in Japan, but if you somehow retained consciousness all the way through this video, then you may remember I talked about the Azure Striker Gunvolt Enhanced Trilogy in Japan, which came out later and supersedes this release, but I still have to bring it up technically. Castlevania Advance Collection, Anniversary Collection, and the Dominus Collection, three amazing and borderline essential titles that Limited Run did in North America, and they were so essential they did print like tens of thousands of copies of each collection, so it feels a bit weird to include them in this video because if you check VGP for example, they still have plenty of copies each. However, within the parameters of this video, I'm still required to mention the Asian and Japanese physical releases, which are nice alternatives, maybe even cheaper, and the collector's edition more affordable and beautiful in my opinion. You need these retro collections in your collection, whether the American one or the Japanese one. Chicory, A Colorful Tale is a top-down adventure game that has you painting the world around you. You use color to solve puzzles around you, or just piss about drawing cock and balls everywhere. Very wholesome. If you missed Limited Run's low-key release, then you can pick this up from Asia. Cho Aniki Collection is all about the teas though. Oh yes, this package does not have English, but muscular men are the universal language. This is a shmup package for the memes. It doesn't matter if they're good or not, even though they are supposedly quite decent. You get two shooters from the PC Engine CD era. Choaniki Bakuretsu Ranto Hen might be the weirdest fighting game in terms of imports, and believe me, that is saying something. This is a random port of a Super Famicom game, and naturally it does not have English, but if you want the characters from the Choaniki franchise fighting each other instead of being a shmup, well, enjoy. Citizens Unite is 2 games in one that were originally separate, but this Switch version weaved both games together, and you can switch between them, and they have a connecting story. It's pretty ingenious. Now, the limited run version is often found very cheap these days, but there's also a very cheap Japanese edition that is easily accessible too. Clannad, it feels odd leaving this out of the visual novel section since it's often cited by many as the greatest visual novel ever made. Well, Limited Run did a physical release of it, which is kinda cool of them. That goes for a lot of money on eBay now, so if you want one of the greatest VNs ever made, then you still have a decent alternative in Japan with the physical release there. Well, if it was any less rare. It's still rare and expensive in Japan too. Clock Tower Rewind is a decent port of the horror point-and-click classic. From the Super Famicom, this survival horror game broke new ground, and it's great to have it come back, and a whole new generation can experience it and all its archaicness. Kogan's Sword of Rewind is a very difficult action platformer, might be one of the hardest games I've ever beaten. Maybe that's due to the time rewind mechanic that's often making one's head spin, but if you're prepared for some hardship and great satisfaction when you finally overcome it, this is one you may want to look into. Contra Operation Galuga, a bit weird that Konami had to rely on limited run games for a Western physical release. Such a big name, a big publisher, big audience, especially in North America, so it is a bit sad, but Japan and Asia got a retail version too, which is easily found these days if you want to pick up the latest Contra game. The Contra Anniversary Collection is a bit like those Castlevania collections, except it's Contra. It's got a lot of the earlier games in the series, and they are all fantastic. Well, most of them are. I have a particular fondness for the Game Boy game. I don't know why, it just resonates with me. Once again, limited run printed like 1 billion copies of this, so it's not exactly rare, but the upcoming Japanese release is a fine addition to anyone's collection too. Cyber Citizen Shockman Collection is a collection of 4 Mega Man-like games that were obscure TurboGrafx/Super CD releases, most of which did not release in the West. It's really nice to have something like this, and these are the kind of retro collections that I love. Dawn of the Monsters is a fun beat-em-up starring kaiju, which I'm pretty sure is what video games were made for. If it's not a kaiju beat-em-up, is it really a video game? I don't know if it's the best kaiju beat-em-up ever, but it is a kaiju beat-em-up. You literally can't make a bad game with this premise. Devil Engine is better in Japan, even though Limited Run did their release. I mean, there's no bias here, nothing to do with the price, it's the content, because Devil Engine in Japan came with a bonus game, another smaller shooter called Shenandoah 1993. That's worth an import for that reason alone. El Shaddai got a remaster last year, and this is a visually intriguing game, some may say artsy-fartsy, but when you get into the Devil May Cry action and you're wondering what the hell is going on, then it's all good. It always was a weird game, but there's something fresh about its simplicity these days when action games overcomplicate themselves. Front Mission 2 Remake, I'm including this because while it did get a European release prior to a belated limited run release, I believe that the European version is exclusive to Forever Limited's website and not at retail, at least not officially. It is a decent enough remake of Square's classic strategy RPG starring mechs. Fuga Melodies of Steel 1, 2, and 3 are 3 separate releases of 3 great games. Obviously, you're going to want to buy them together since they are kind of one saga, and in fact you can buy them in a Trilogy Collector's Edition. These are not your bog standard JRPGs, in fact they are a bit difficult to categorize, but you just need to know they're awesome. Forget the furry appearance, okay? You're going to get an incredible story with fun gameplay. That means they are highly recommended as an import. Golf Story is a really great take on the sports adventure game genre, inspired by the Game Boy Mario Tennis and golf games. This one is peak melding sport with action and exploration. It is a shame then the developers dropped the ball inexplicably with the sequel. Limited Run did this in North America and B-Side Games did it in Japan with a nicer cover art and being complete on cartridge, no updates. Gradius Origins is a great collection of one of my favorite shooter series. It's not as comprehensive as I would like, but there are so many editions and versions of this series and spin-offs, it would be almost impossible to do a full set. But you've got the main essentials, plus a brand new game in the series. Grandia HD Collection is an essential import if you don't have Limited Run's very expensive edition. You get 2 fantastic classic JRPGs on one cartridge. These JRPGs are the kind that exude the feeling of adventure like no other from the golden era. The Asian and Korean versions, which play in English, are far more affordable and are highly advised to be picked up if you don't own them already. It's one of the biggest imports of all time. Gunvolt Chronicles, Luminous Avenger X, and X2 are two separate releases that Limited Run also did, but Japan got them as well. I've only played the second game, but I really enjoyed it, and normally I don't really completely get into these kind of action platformers these days, but I played it to the end, and I really enjoyed my time with it. It got the difficulty balance just right, the production is sweet, and I can definitely recommend them both, since most people say the first game is better than the second. Komajo Remelia Scarlet Symphony got a belated limited run release long after the Japanese one, and this is a very difficult action platformer that half wants to be a Castlevania game while the other half a Touhou bullet hell. The boss battles are definitely a weakness due to your lack of mobility, but there is a decent game here if you fancy a challenge. The Legend of Tianding is a fun beat-em-up adventure based on a Taiwanese equivalent of, say, Robin Hood. Steal from the rich and give to the poor, and also fight off the Japanese occupiers. I haven't played this, but it looks pretty good, and it's got inspiration from various indie legends like Shank, Guacamelee, and so on. Lunark is a cinematic platformer taking inspiration from Another World or Flashback, but in the modern era, it may be more palatable for modern gamers. Still has some archaic elements and some unforgiving parts which may frustrate or bring a lot of nostalgia depending on the player. Magical Drop 6 sold very poorly at limited run, probably because it was out in Japan for a long while before then and it wasn't particularly desirable. Nothing wrong with the game, but it is hardly a big seller. Quite niche, balls hard arcade puzzle action straight from the early 90s, good stuff but niche. Moon is one of my favorite games on the Switch, a port of a PlayStation 1 game that never left Japan. This is the first time the game has had English, and it is lovely. It's an adventure game that has you cleaning up the chaos caused by the supposed hero of an RPG. It's all about love, and it's beautiful. Nurse Love Obsession is a double helping of Yuri visual novels set in the medical world. Limited Run distributed this in North America, but I think unsold copies found their way into Asian regions, perhaps not technically an import exclusive. I would have to check the cartridge differences, but still, you can find this in Asia in English. Raiden Nova, despite being a brand new entry in a well-regarded shmup series, Nova didn't really cause many waves aside from completely switching the genre, which probably confused quite a lot of old-school fans, and it didn't win over any new fans, so yeah, it lost. River City Girls 2, 1 and 2, the complete edition. This is a confusing mess, so much so I might make a quick video explaining it all properly, but what you should know is that Limited Run Games did River City Girls 1, River City Girls 2, and River City Girls 0 physically, individually, whereas Japan and Asia also got 1 and 2 separately, but also in a double pack. And then recently there's been a complete edition which contains all 3 games, which sounds great, but actually it has a large update for each game and the DLC isn't actually on the cartridge as promised, so it doesn't really live up to its complete name. Rose and Camellia Collection got a quiet release in Asia a while after Limited Run's edition. I feel like this game was popular with Twitter memes and clips for about 5 minutes when it released digitally, but by the time the physical came around, it just wasn't as popular. Still an interesting time though, as you dramatically slap each other like the best kind of soap opera. RP Golf Legends is a really solid attempt to make golf more interesting. You get different outfits that change your abilities, and you adventure around while playing a bit of golf. It's a bit like Golf Story, but not as good. Ruby Arrowfell is an action platformer that fans of the franchise will probably enjoy a lot more than the Everyman. Definitely not WayForward's best work, and probably overpriced thanks to the license, but the physical release from Asia isn't so expensive these days. Samurai Jack is a pretty fun action game that did the series justice, with a solid title. Sadly, the digital release has been delisted from the eShop and all other digital stores, so that's where the power of the physical release comes in, either from Limited Run or the Japanese physical release. However, it's probably not worth the price it's going for now on eBay. Shantae and the Seven Sirens, of course Limited Run did this, they do every Shantae game, but this one slipped through their exclusivity net, and this is a very nice and well-loved Metroidvania, and it's available in Japan, often found for a very affordable price. Shin-Chan, Summer Vacation, and Coal Town Double Pack. Limited Run did both of these individually, but in the future, in Asia, they are getting a double pack with some of the versions being in English. And this is a nice way to save some shelf space on some adorable, lovely games. Europe did get the second game at retail, but not the first game, so it still counts for this video. Shinobi Art of Vengeance is a bit of an annoying release because Asian and Japanese editions were blocked from being sent worldwide at the demand of someone either at SaGa or at Limited Run. Those who ordered the much cheaper Japanese edition had their orders cancelled by various import websites, which is honestly terrible business practice. Well done, Limited Run. Maybe next time offer a better, more competitive product than, trying to eliminate the competition. Sol Cresta is another one that was geo-blocked at one point. The Japanese edition is dirt cheap now. This is a long-awaited sequel to a well-loved shooter series that is known for its fun power-up mechanic. I haven't played this one, but I've played some of the older releases and I do enjoy them. Spider Swords is a fun run-and-gun that feels like WayForward's trial run or pitch to Konami to do another Contra game. Maybe it did lead to Operation Galuga getting greenlit in the end, but this is like a Saturday morning cartoon-style action game that may not last long, but it'll please before the end. Telenet Shooting Collection was done by Limited Run. I'm surprised they haven't done the second collection, which I've already talked about. Maybe they'll do it later. This one contains Granada, Avenger, Gyrus, and Psychic Storm. Tetris Effect Connected. It's amazing that Tetris needed Limited Run's help. Probably the best-selling video game franchise of all time needed to be done by Limited Run in North America. But Japan also got it, and it's a great psychedelic time if you enjoy action puzzle games. Tiger Heli was a bit of a random release for them, part of the M2 Shot Triggers line. You'd think they'd have done more, but no, they only did this one for some reason, and this contains various editions of the legendary Tiger Heli game and Twin Cobra, more versions than you'd ever need, but pretty cool, and don't believe the Japanese version actually has English, but of course it's not that important. Tomba Special Edition was ported to modern consoles by Limited Run, so naturally they had the physical for it too. A cult classic platformer that still got a physical release in its home country of Japan via Super Deluxe. A 2.5D platformer that many people are nostalgic for. The second game was just announced by Limited Run, so maybe that will get a Japanese release too in the future. Trip World DX was always a bit of a tough sell, basically a Game Boy ROM sold for $35. It is a cute game, but I don't think it sold well at all via Limited Run, so there are plenty of copies available to go around. However, the Japanese edition might be a bit of a cheaper option, I don't know. This is a platformer whose biggest claim to fame is that it used to be one of the most expensive Game Boy games to buy. Unpacking was an indie hit when it initially released. The physical release wasn't huge though, maybe a bit too late to ride the hype wave. If you missed Limited Run's version, the Japanese edition via Super Deluxe is a fine alternative and, in my opinion, a better package regardless of accessibility. Valhalla is a great visual novel adventure, bartendering thing, excellent vibe and atmosphere. It was one of Limited Run's earlier releases and so commands a pretty high price these days, but the Japanese edition, which does play in English, is a cheaper alternative and I also prefer the artwork. Valis Collection 1, 2, and 3 are definitely better if you bought them from Limited Run Games because, unlike Japan, they actually have English, not just in the menus but also in the story as well. While I personally do not think the stories are anything worth the napkin they were obviously written on, but some people do think they're important, but whatever. If you feel the same way as me, these Japanese editions are more affordable, especially if you buy them in the triple pack that was recently released. Yume Otsutsu was such a random release for Limited Run because it came so long after the Asian release. This is a double pack of Yuri VNs, pretty decent, good production value, and an interesting subject regarding working in a game development studio with a quirky cast of characters. Triggerheart Exilica Enhanced just recently got up for pre-order via Limited Run. The Japanese version does not have English, but I don't think it's massively necessary. In fact, I don't think this enhanced edition is massively necessary to begin with, compared to the normal release, which got a retail release in the West. This enhanced edition takes out one of the game modes, it changes up the scoring system, and adds one character, but the big addition is the extra story segments, which I don't think any serious shmup fan cares about at all. Alright, now we are moving on to strictly limited games in Germany. At first, when they started, they were pretty efficient, they got games out pretty fast. However, as time has gone on, they've struggled to actually print the games they've taken pre-orders for. So often, it is the case that Japan is still the only way to get them, even if Strictly Limited promised they would print them like 2 or 3 years ago, but they still haven't. Abarembo Tengu is a quirky shooter that I'm happy I don't need to talk about right at the start of the video. Usually it's like the first game on the list of any video I make, but this is 2 8-bit shooters that are basically the same game with a palette swap. Usually I include low print releases in these videos because they tend to be more readily available than Strictly Limited or whatever, but actually this in Japan is just as obscure. Akai Ito and Aoshiro HD Remaster is a double pack of 2 Yuri visual novels. Strictly Limited have taken literally years to print this and still haven't as far as I'm aware, and I don't think it sold well enough for them to actually rush and do it, but you can pick up the Japanese edition since that has English. Clockwork Aquario is a pretty cool arcade platformer. It's hardly the greatest of its era, but it's still a solid job if you like those not so common arcade platformers that the Neo Geo occasionally had. This was originally supposed to be a 90s arcade game, but it was cancelled. However, they finished it for this generation. Cotton Guardian Force Saturn Tribute is one of many Cotton games on the Switch. Well, it includes 2 Cotton games and Guardian Force. All 3 were released on the Saturn, and Cotton is excellent even if the port wasn't as perfect as it could be. Guardian Force, well, I could take or leave. Darius Cosmic Collection and Cosmic Revelation are 2 collections that Strictly Limited did, although if we're being honest, Strictly Limited is the better for the Cosmic Collection, because they split it up into 2 releases to get all of the games, whereas in Japan, they weren't so comprehensive unless you bought the extremely expensive Collector's Edition. Revelations is the same between Japan and Strictly, it's more Darius than you'll actually ever need. Dranius is a very good modern indie shmup that was built like the classics, lots of content, great visuals, and classic gameplay you can't go wrong with. The Japanese version is often found very affordably and is well worth it if you miss Strictly's. Everyone's Spelunker, also known as Spelunker HD, was done by Strictly Limited, with the limited edition still in stock, but Japan also has this in English and for a very affordable standard edition. Even if the game looks super cheap and not very interesting, it is an exploration type of game. Irem Collection Volumes 1 to 3 are 3 solid collections of retro titles, although skimping a bit on the game quantity. There are seemingly 5 volumes planned, but 3 are currently available in Japan. Strictly Limited took pre-orders for these, but have yet to print any of them on Nintendo Switch, and in my opinion, these collections seem to be getting better and better. Volume 1 was okay, I could take it or leave it, nothing special. Volume 2 and 3 really ramped up the quality though. Osman, also known as Canon Dancer, is a long-forgotten arcade release from the 90s that was supposed to be a spiritual successor to Strider, and you can instantly see that within 3 seconds of the trailer. I've never played either, to be honest. There's something about Strider that makes it look like it's in the same camp as Altered Beast. I know that's a weird take, and I'm sure I'd like it if I could be asked to turn it on my Mega Drive. Rainbow Cotton should be done by Strictly Limited Games, but there's been no sign of them actually printing it yet. It didn't sell well. Widely considered to be the worst Cotton game, this remake actually fixed things to make it a lot better. Still not a super great game, but if you're craving a colourful rail shooter from the Dreamcast era, and let's face it, you'd be weird if you weren't, then it's not so bad. Ray's Arcade Chronology is another one they've yet to print. There is a watered down retail version of this in the West which only contains 2 games, but this Chronology edition has more and is definitely the way to go. The Japanese release isn't expensive at all these days. I think I got mine for $20 when it was on sale, and well worth it for that price. Rolling Gunner plus Overpower is a pretty sweet shooter made by people who know exactly what goes into making the genre great. This contains the base game and the DLC, which switches up the gameplay quite strikingly, like almost making it a new experience. And yeah, Strictly Limited did this one and they have printed it, so it's out there. Snow Battle Princess Sayuki does not have English in the Japanese release, which, makes it not exactly essential as an import, but it's still an option. I don't think English is going to be massively necessary to enjoy this spiritual successor to the Pocky and Rocky games. Will Strictly Limited ever print theirs? Who knows? It's very low priority for them. Space Invaders Invincible Collection Special is a very comprehensive collection of Space Invaders games, right from the beginning all the way to the modern day. Strictly Limited did this for a very high price, and last I checked they still didn't sell all the copies, but if you want an alternative, you can check out the Japanese version for all your Space Invader needs. This is much better than the extremely stripped down retail release that only had 2 games on it. A word of warning about the Japanese version though, because there are 2 versions. There was the initial release, which was not exactly complete, but there was a later release, which is the one I've linked below, that is in line with Strictly Limited's version. Steel Empire Chronicles still has not been printed by Strictly Limited Games on Switch, that's despite Japan getting it earlier this year. This contains the new Steel Empire game alongside some of the retro versions. Now, in the Japanese release, there is no English on the main game, at least not that's advertised on the eShop, but it'll certainly be very playable if you don't want to wait and see if Strictly Limited ever print this on the Switch. Treble Witches Final Episode 1 Daughters of Amalgam, technically a Strictly Limited Games, but in Europe, their sister company, In Games, are doing a collector's only edition exclusive to their website, but this has been out in Japan at retail for absolutely years now, and to be fair, at times it has been a very rare game to get a hold of. It did get a reprint finally and is more available once again. It is a cute-em-up starring a witch, and it's very similar to Cotton, and it does in fact include Cotton as a downloadable character. Turrican Anthology Volumes 1 and 2 were done by Strictly Limited and proved to be rather popular releases, especially in Europe where the Turrican nostalgia is probably on par with Contra for Americans. While retail got a watered-down version of these releases, these 2 separate volumes contain way more versions of the games, and thankfully Japan also got the 2 at retail and in a collector's edition that has both games together. Super Rare Games from the UK. Initially, they were very restrictive and very protective of their exclusivity deals. However, over the years, they've come to realize they can't hold on to things forever, so you'll find that some of their games are now available in Japan and Asia. Astria Six-Sided Oracles is still in stock at Super Rare Games at the time of making this video. They still have like 20% of their 3,000 copies left, probably because it's a lot more expensive than the Japanese and Asian editions. It's a dice-rolling, deck-building RPG, supposedly pretty good, and the art style is really nice, if a bit busy. Grime is a fun action game, although the Switch version isn't considered the best way to play it, but Super Rare sold it anyways, and it also quickly became available in Asia and Japan, and available for a cheaper price too. Lost in Play is an adventure game that doesn't really need language. In fact, despite English technically being taken out of the Japanese release compared to Super Rare's, that's a bit shitty, there's no actual dialogue in the game, so it's all completely told visually, which is interesting. Language not needed. Terra Memoria is a really cool looking indie RPG, definitely punching above its weight in terms of production value for an indie game. It looks great, although criticism is targeted at it being too easy, handholdy and casual, but it does look good. If you miss Super Rare's release, then the affordable Asian release is the way to go. Wargroove 1 and 2 was a very popular release, not only with Super Rare Games where it sold out very quickly, but also in Japan where, in my humble opinion, it had much better artwork and was also more affordable. This package contains 2 excellent strategy games that are well worth picking up if you like Advance Wars. Now the first game did get a retail release in Europe and North America, but the second game did not. Game Fairy. I'll quickly go over a couple of Game Fairy releases. They are a German company that only sell games on their website, and they have a couple of games that got a wider release in Japan and Asia, often much earlier too. Yeah, Game Fairy tend to be a little late to the party. Atomic Crops is a crazy action run-and-gun that also tries to mix in farming between every wave of enemies. It has an outlandish art style that makes it tough to play for extended periods, but it's got a gameplay loop that is down to a T. I think if this released brand new today, it would be far more popular due to the Vampire Survivors trend. Coma Double Cut is a double pack of Coma 1 and 2. Weirdly, they didn't include the third game, which came out around the same time as this. Not to worry, because not many were gonna buy this anyway, since the first game got a retail release early in the Switch's life. It wasn't very good, and the second game was much better, but this is a case of being a little bit too late. Alright, before we end, we are moving to the Nintendo Switch 2. Yes, I have mentioned them in this video already a little bit, but I just want to highlight once and for all, like completely without interruption, Nintendo Switch 2 physical releases in Japan exclusively there that have English. We're pretty early in the Switch 2's life, so there's not many at the time of making this video, but hopefully there are more to come. Tamagotchi Plaza Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. While the Switch version of this game did get a Western physical release in Europe, the Switch 2 did get a physical release of this in Japan, and yeah, it's a proper cartridge, otherwise I wouldn't mention it. It is a weird minigame mix of loads of different things. It'll be alright for kids. If you enjoy brushing weirdos' teeth or fixing bicycles, well, there's a little bit of everything. And this Switch 2 Edition has more minigames that take advantage of the Switch 2's features, mainly the mouse controls. Majogami, I mentioned this already of course, but this also has its own bona fide Switch 2 physical edition. And it's not even a Switch 2 edition, like it's a proper Switch 2 release. This is a very active action game platformer from Inti Creates. There's a demo up on the eShop right now. I played it, I enjoyed it, and I'm just waiting for the finished game to come out. Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time Nintendo Switch 2 Edition is currently the biggest import of all time. For Nintendo Switch 2, of course. This is an absolutely excellent release that made me realize why Level 5 are bloody awesome. Many people already imported the Switch edition, but this one came later. But it was still a success, and of course it should be. It's an awesome game with a little bit of everything. A-Train All Aboard Tourism Nintendo Switch 2 Edition is the third time I brought up this game. There are two on the regular Switch, but this Switch 2 Edition is going to be the one to get if you decide to jump aboard to take advantage of the increased power of the Switch 2 to help some of those rough performance areas when things get busy, and there's mouse support as well. It's releasing in December. Card and CL Nintendo Switch 2 Edition is coming to Japan in January, and in its enhanced version of what came out on the Switch a while back. It's basically Mega Man Battle Network but with original characters, and this Switch 2 Edition will have more content that makes it the one to get if you're gonna purchase it. It will work on the original Switch as well, remember. And there we have it. Did you watch all the way through? If you did, please leave me a moneybags emoji in honor of all the money you have spent, you will spend, and you don't have any more because, you know, game collecting is expensive. Thank you for watching all the way through. It really does make making this video worth it. I wrote every single word of this video from scratch, 35,000 words for this video. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed already, well, you should do, okay? Just thank me by subscribing. And yeah, I hope you all have a fantastic day. Take care.